Summer yet may bloom again, though eyes be up upon us.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have a domination tournament for you this evening. It should be some good fun indeed. Our first match is going to be Outer Region versus Platypus. So it is going to be on the newest patch for Total War Warhammer 3 with all of the juicy new goods that entails. So this first match is going to be on the Crossing the Sea of Claws. We are just waiting for our picks and bans, and we'll be getting right into our first game. I know it has been a very, very long time since last we saw each other. Hopefully the next time won't be quite as long between them. Welcome, Saurus Blood. Welcome to the stream. We are going to be getting underway fairly soon. We do have both contestants in our lobby, so it's just a matter of time before they get through their picks and bans. So for our first round, Outer Region has gone with Khorne and Kislev for his first two picks, and Platypus has responded with the Ogre Kingdoms, and Outer Region has then responded with Kislev. So it is going to be Kislev versus Ogres, Outer Region on Kislev, and Platypus on the Ogre Kingdoms. And we will be going through the armies as soon as they are all set. But I know, yeah, it has been a very long time, and it should be some good fun. Hopefully everything is running as well as it can. The dust has definitely settled long and hard over the hardware for streaming, so hopefully things will go pretty smoothly. So for the matchup, let's kind of just start going into that. Kislev against the Ogre Kingdoms. I think Ogre Kingdoms generally will have the general advantage there. They will outrange Kislev in most aspects. Of course, when it does get down and dirty into that initial engagement, Kislev will be able to kind of overwhelm the Ogres in terms of total range and just numbers in general. And of course, with the patch, the Ogres have suffered a little bit in terms of their overall strength, with the Gorgers and the Iron Blasters taking a mighty hit in terms of the total strength that they have. Welcome, William Crowdus. Welcome back to the stream. I know, yes, it has been a very long time since we have last been here. But yeah, it should be some good fun. I mean, with this particular map, the kind of just the general layout, I guess I can kind of swing over to that since you can't see the armies. We'll just kind of give a little rundown on the map. So both sides are going to be kind of deploying off to the left and top right, and it's definitely going to be giving the Ogres plenty of avenue into that center point to kind of just fire away with their longer range Iron Blasters, and those Iron Guts are going to have just a general overall range advantage, but Kislev does have the mobility, and they do have plenty of just infantry range themselves, so it should be some rather interesting stuff. And of course, the Kislevs have suffered a minor nerf themselves. The light war sleds, they're not so light anymore. Well, they actually have gotten quite a bit lighter. They have reduced their armor from 70 down to 50, and their cost has gone up quite considerably, but they still are a rather formidable foe on the battlefield against the mass that is the Ogre Kingdoms, and it's going to be a little bit harder for them to kind of do what they do best. Looks like Platypus is ready to go, and we'll be getting into the battle as soon as Outer Region himself is ready. We're just going to check Discord quick here to see if we're missing anything. Yeah, just Platypus is ready. Wait, not an Outer Region, and then we'll get on into our first match of the day. These are best of threes for the semifinals, and the finals will be a best of five. So we can switch over to the bracket as well. So we have Outer Region, Platypus in our first matchup, and then we'll have Houseplant against an unknown benefactor for the last one, and that is going to be might be decided just yet, and it has. So Trader GG has won over Subotai, so Trader GG will be facing off against Houseman, so we'll update that here real quick, and it looks like Outer Region is ready, so we will quickly add that to the roster and then get into our first match. Very good. Hopefully everything runs fairly smoothly. So we're going to get a quick little glimpse at what we're going to be seeing for the army. So we do have a double Little Grom here from Outer Region on Kislev. We do have, it looks like we have an Ice Witch, we have some armored Corsairs, and just some regular Corsairs with spears for the rest of the army. We'll be kind of getting more into that as soon as we do load in and kind of see a little bit on the other side. We have plenty of range from the Ogre Kingdoms as well. Iron Blasters, even though they are quite a bit more expensive, will be on the battlefield, and we are just about to load in. Hopefully, there we go, everything's all in, and I know I will have to update things just real quick here in terms of general stability. And that should pretty much everything that we need. Might do a little bit quicker speed, a little too slow, and we should be good to go. So for Kislev and the forces from Outer Region, he does have those armored Corsairs on that front ranks, plenty of Corsairs with spears on the back, double a Little Grom, and then we do have an Ice Witch of Ice going to be on the field. Not going to be really bringing a lot for her, as she does only have, actually she is only going to be coming in with By Our Blood, and she does have the Death Frost for the Lore of Ice and Guardian's Call, but that is it for her. As for the Ogre Kingdoms, they're getting very ready a little too quickly for my taste, but we have some Noblar Trappers. We do have these Ogre Bulls with the Iron Fist, so they are going to be the shielded variants, so they are going to be having a bit of that missile resist, and they are all going to be streaming down to that point 3 on the far rank. Some Lead Belchers as well, 2 units of those as we saw in the loading screen, Iron Blaster, and then a Slaughtermaster of the Great Maw. With the extra ingredients, we have a Bone Crusher, very good against the tightly packed infantry of Kislev, and that is going to be it for the spell casting. And then as for the rest of the items, we do have Belly Slapper and the Blood Cleaver. We are going to be getting some quick early summons in with some Iron Guts and some Noblars on the other flank, and they are going to be starting to push in towards that far point there, and Kislev is going to be contending that with a couple of those Corsairs with spears on top of that. But Kislev is already firmly in place in that center objective. They have plenty of range, going to be focusing down any incoming ogres, as both of the Little Groms are going to be firing off against the opposing side. Now the Little Groms have gotten a little buff themselves, a little bit of extra missile damage and armor piercing, so they will be a little bit better than they were pre-patch in that regards. But the Ogre is going to be using the terrain to their advantage, as they are going to be kind of blocking their very kind of more expensive and larger units off by that center immovable terrain. Going to be keeping Little Grom from getting in on top of them, while they are going to be kind of taking this top rank here, as Kislev does have quite a few numbers, going to be pushing heavily into point 1. 2 of those Corsairs with spears, and they do have, of course, these winged Lancers here already brought in from their reserves. And the Ice Witch is going to be just kind of sitting back and trying to kind of just, again, just stay out of range from anything that could do her harm. And more armored Corsairs are going to be coming in to reinforce, but the Ogres are probably in a little bit of a disadvantageous position to start things off. Kislev very strongly center rank on this point too, and they do have the numbers advantage, but we do have some Mournfang cavalry going to be pushing in as well with those great weapons to kind of deal with those winged Lancers. Going to be able to trade very effectively into them with their bonus versus large, and we are going to be getting some more Ogre Bulls on there for some more monstrous infantry. But shots have already rained in. These Lead Belchers taken quite a bit of damage so far just from these Little Groms landing some very decent shots in, but they will be able to take point 3, and Kislev should be taking point 1 and 2 off the initial engagements, but ogres are starting to come in fairly heavy, but a massive amount of damage dealt to those Mournfang cavalry from those little Grom, getting a very nice angle of attack right down the pipe, and they are going to be taking them down already pretty much down to half health. That is some very good value generated so far in this fight, as Kislev is going to be sitting very strong here at point 1, especially with the damage dealt to those Mournfang cavalry. It is going to allow those Winged Lancers to breathe a little bit of sigh of relief kind of coming into those initial engagements. Corsairs are going to start opening up into those Noblars, doing some nice bit of damage. They're just kind of whittling down everything that they can in terms of chat, but we do have some of these Ogre Bulls are going to be kind of coming in, looking for a nice flanking maneuver and a very nice Iron Fist dropping right into the middle of those Armored Corsairs, taking off a very nice chunk of their HP, as the Iron Blaster is looking to try and get into position himself as a Slaughtermaster at both of these Lead Belchers as well, trying to outflank the Kislevite forces, and more reinforcements though are going to be coming in for them as they look to kind of bolster a little bit of their point 1 strength with a Snow Leopard going to be coming in. These Noblars have managed to somehow make it around that bend and are going to be trying to support the center ranks here, but those Winged Corsairs or Winged Lancers are going to be kind of diving down, going to be picking them off before they're able to support those center ranks, as these Mournfang cavalry themselves going to be getting a nice charge in. And those victory points, though, are going to be going to Kislev, and the Ogres have been able to actually take point 2, despite Kislev having a very strong presence early on. They have been able to get pushed back by the Ogres, so the Ogres also being able to take point 3 over here very strongly. So Kislev is going to have to try and push a little bit into point 2, but probably playing a little bit onto that comeback mechanic, not necessarily wanting to take point 2 super early on, and giving those Ogres a little bit of extra in terms of that reserves, and they have been able to trade very effectively in terms of damage, already sitting at 4,000 to the 2,000 that the Ogres have been able to dealt, so definitely trading very effectively. Those little Groms have been doing excellent work, especially against those Mournfang cavalry, doing a ton of damage to them, and as well as all the monstrous infantry taking quite a bit of a beating from the Kislevite ranged forces. Though the Ogres do have plenty of numbers in the center ranks, and they have been able to kind of keep things at bay, though we do have those Warbear Riders with those bonus versus large, so we'll do quite well, even though those Iron Guts are going to be in there, and those Iron Guts themselves do have that nice armor piercing, but they do not have the bonus versus large that they might very sorely need against all of that cavalry on that far flank. And we do have another Iron Fist going to be dropping right on into these Corsairs with spears, not necessarily going to be dealing as much value as against those Armored Corsairs, but still going to be taking them well below half health, doing a nice damage, and is going to be proccing their army ability, already hitting that Unbreakable. The little Grom is going to be very content to fire away from range so far in this fight. Both of them are just going to be doing a ton of damage, especially to these two Lead Belchers, able to get them very low, and these guys are wavering and are actually going to end up routing. So Kislev, very strong position early on, despite the fact that they only have that first objective. Points 2 and 3 still owned by the Ogre Kingdoms, but Kislev is trading very well, and it's only a matter of time before they are going to be able to start kind of turning the tide on that land battle engagement, as the forces of the Ogres, you're already seeing it. These Noblars are going to be starting to break down bit by bit. We do have these Dervite Curvishes, or Kosovite Dervishes, going to be coming in, getting a nice rear charge, trying to break all of the support that they can in this pocket to really free up a lot of these other mobile units. Though we do have these Saber-Tusk Pack going to be coming in for a nice little rear charge into the back of those charging cavalry units, trying to just kind of free up what they can. But the Ogres really do need to kind of start trading a little bit more efficiently, as just kind of looking at the total supplies, as you can just kind of see the supplies for Kislev is already at 1,700 versus the 500, and when they are already sitting at 2,300 extra in terms of total damage done in this fight, that extra reserves is going to be very nice, and we're going to be seeing a bit more of that coming on in as we get those Winged Lancers and another Snow Leopard going to be charging on down the hill, going to be really trying to push in to the center objectives, and the points definitely not too much of a worry for Kislev at this point. They are only down by about 700 in total, and they have plenty of time to spare, as we do have some units starting to push in against just these two units of Kosar Spears. So we have those Iron Guts and the Saber-Tusk Pack going to be pushing in. Now these Iron Guts here, they do have 90 armor, but they are going to be going up against two Kosars with spears, and they should be able to do some decent damage, especially with the assistance of these Saber-Tusk Packs, but they are probably not going to be trading as effectively as they would like, but they really do kind of want to try and take those points, definitely seeing how far behind than they are in total damage. They really can't just kind of sit on only 2 points. They need to kind of push that point advantage as far as they can, because eventually Kislev is going to be getting a nice benefit in terms of just general just momentum, as they're going to be available to push into point 2 bit by bit. The Ogres so far have been able to hold Kislev at bay with everything that has been thrown at them. This flank over here, Kislev has thrown some very expensive units. These Warbird Riders and these Winged Lancers have all just tried to break into this little flank here, but Iron Guts, Ogre Bulls, all these Saber-Tusk packs have just been able to really hold that very, very well, and the cavalry is going to be getting repelled on that flank, and actually the damage is actually kind of starting to swing a little bit more back towards a center, as the Ogres have been able to kind of trade a lot more effectively towards the later stage. Iron Blaster taking some mighty damage from those little Grom units, as they are going to be able to push that thing back, cause it to rout with plenty of ammunition to spare. So that is going to be a nice little gain by Kislev, and you can kind of see that that point is starting to fall to the Ogres, and that center rank is still well in control of the Ogres. That Ice Witch is a little bit out of position. I mean, no, not just a little bit, very out of position there, not really to having the support. So despite the Kislev having that initial very good trades in the early stage of the battle, things are starting to switch more towards the Ogre side, as these Iron Guts and the Saber-Tusk pack able to deal with both of these Kossars and Spears. Kossovite Dervishes trying to come in and hold this point against all odds, as they do get a nice little flanking maneuver into these Iron Guts, but they are probably not going to be lasting all too long, and Kislev really does look like they are running out of steam despite those early damage done. And the Ogres just kind of seen they have 23 out of 28 of the total units. I mean, Kislev is 28 out of 24, so plenty of models on the field on both sides. But the Ogres are experiencing a little bit of a mass rout in the center point, though that Ice Witch is getting very, very low. Slaughtermaster able to do some nice damage, and that Iron Blaster is back online despite being very low in terms of HP, but it is able to get some more damage value done as those shots continue to rain down upon the opposing sides, getting some shots trying to get rid of these Warbear Riders. Only a few of them left, and on slivers of HP at that. Both of these Snow Leopards going to be getting caught out by all of these Ogres, Nobblar Trappers, and some more Nobblar Trappers, so really taking quite a bit of damage there, as that Slaughtermaster is going to be kind of coming back into their own zone. Now this little Grom definitely, after using all of his ammunition, definitely should be trying to recall itself and kind of get a little bit of funds back, especially using all that ammunition. Not a whole lot left in total value to be dealt, but it looks like the Ogres are starting to really kind of pull through, even though that Kislev should have a little bit more command of the battlefield. The Ogres are sitting very, very strong. Definitely plenty of reserves though left for Kislev. Does definitely not want to let those get too much higher. Needs those units on the field and try and contest these points. They have been able to take point 2, but point 1 and 3 is still well under the Ogres' control, as they have been able to push off anything that did try and take that point 1, and point 3 has been, well, pretty much uncontested until just now, as we do have some cavalry units on that far flank trying to put a little bit of pressure there, but we do have some Ogre Bulls coming in from the Ogres, and they are sitting very close in terms of taking that first victory with their total, and they only really need to hold one of the remaining points to really kind of take that, because they are only 700 points from victory at this stage in the fight. That little Grob definitely needs to be recalled and trying to get a little bit of more funds back, as the mobility is going to be trying to rein in and take this point 3. Now there's nothing immediately in this vicinity, so both of these Winged Lancers and those Kossovite Dervishes should be able to take point 3 fairly quickly on, but they are going to need more than 2 points here if they are going to be wanting to kind of snatch victory in the jaws of defeat, as the Ogres have pretty much equalized in terms of total damage, but of course Kislev is getting more of those enemy tickets, as they are kind of sitting down in that reserves, and they are getting +5 back, and they are almost on point on +10. But Kislev coming in with that second win. Armored Corsairs and Corsairs kind of streaming down, trying to push into point 2, but Ogres have been able to take point 2 back from Kislev, and I think that is going to be all she wrote. Ogres just have too much mass, and there's just not enough time left. Only 100 points left, and they need to triple cap, and there is nothing close to this point 1. That is going to be our first game, as Platypus does take that first game with the Ogre Kingdoms. So let's take a quick look at the total value from all of the units. The Slaughtermaster actually doing really, really well, getting 2,300. Iron Blaster only 900. Both of the Lead Belchers definitely not doing all too great. The Little Grom doing a ton of damage to all of those. And then the rest of the Ogre Bulls, these guys getting 1,000 in value. Some very nice value from them. As for the reserves, Mornbane Cavalry definitely took quite a bit of damage early on. But Saber Tusk Pack and the mobility game for the Ogres definitely doing a lot of good work there. And the rest of the Ogre Bulls doing some nice damage against the Kislevite forces. As for Kislev themselves, the Ice Witch definitely did not get a whole lot of value, but both of the Little Groms did very, very well, 2,700 and 2,500. And then the rest of the initial starting funds, nothing too great on that end other than the 2 artillery pieces. For the reserves, the Warbear Riders did do some decent damage in, but the rest of the mobility just wasn't quite going to be cut out for the task at hand. And that is going to be our first game. So let's switch into our kind of intermediate scene as we kind of get ready for our next match, and we'll update the scorecard as well, as Platypus does take that first game. Going to be putting it up 1-0, and this is a best of 3 for the semifinals. And we'll see what the picks are looking like for this first one. So for the next one, Platypus has gone with Slaanesh and Kislev for the first 2 picks. It is going to be, of course, a pick 2 and then a ban from those on the flip side. That is how the picks and bans are going for the best of 3. We'll kind of go into the best of 5 once we do get into the final, but that is not going to be just yet. So outer region, though, is going to be going with Tzeentch. Actually, a little bit of clarifying. I think I misspoke there for just a second. It is pick 2 and then pick. There is no bans here in this best of 3, I think, until we get to the rubber match. But for the first 2 games, it is just pick 2 and then pick from the remaining 2 factions. And it is going to be Tzeentch versus Slaanesh for this next fight, as Platypus is going to be on Slaanesh, and outer region will have Tzeentch under his command. So, and the next map, I should have already set this, but the next map is going to be Arnheim. It is one of the newer maps on the roster from this last patch. We can kind of take a look at that as we switch over and just kind of overview how the map is going to be looking like from the initial deployment. So the deployment zones are rather large in general. Both sides have plenty of room to deploy on both sides, kind of more in line with how the Warhammer 2 deployments have been. But for the objective points, we do have one up on the top hill, on the left side, one in the center, and then one more on the far flank. So there can be 2 down in the flats and then 1 up on the hill. But there is a rather massive cliff that really no range is going to be able to kind of support those bottom units without taking that top point. But with any of the less mobile factions, it is going to be a lot harder to really kind of push into point, or that top point, and also contend some of the lower points. So I think Slaanesh is going to be able to kind of use their mobility a little bit to their advantage. There is still a lot of ground to cover on those lower fields for Tzeentch to really kind of keep their own. We do have Platypus ready to go, so just waiting on outer region before we get into game 2 of this first semi-final game. So yeah, Platypus is ready, and we're just waiting on outer region. Now, for this matchup, I mean, Slaanesh has kind of struggled a bit with kind of dealing with spawn, but with kind of the change in a bit of the functionality, the Slaanesh cavalry unit, or not cavalry, the chariot units, which really struggled mightily in the initial release, have actually kind of come into their own a bit with this most recent patch. So kind of pushing into the range units will be a little bit nicer to do, but of course those spawn will provide a bit of that roadblock if Tzeentch does decide to go with those. And Slaanesh, of course, being low armored in general, is going to just kind of play to Tzeentch's strong suit, in which all of their blue horrors and pink horrors will be able to really kind of pepper them down quite heavily in that regard. So it's kind of waiting on outer region here to ready up before we kind of get into our next match, as we are going to be just kind of waiting on them kind of in our intermission scene here, as both sides do kind of go through their armies. So I'm just going to kind of switch over to that, kind of see how both armies are picking on out, see where they are. So it looks like outer region is getting fairly close to readying up, just kind of dealing with those remaining funds, just trying to kind of utilize them as best that he can. And of course, Platypus is ready to go with all of their units. So it looks like both sides are now finally set. So we can ready on up and get into our next game. Game 2 of our first semi-final match for this North American Zone Domination Tournament. So we can switch that scene on over and kind of start going, getting a little glimpse at the armies picked for this battle. So for the Tzeentch side, we are going to be seeing quite a few range units. We have a couple of pink horrors, 3 blue horrors, Forsaken, a couple of cultists, Spawn, and a herald for outer region. As for the Slaanesh side, it is going to be very heavy on the infantry. So we're going to be seeing those whip units with their rather nice melee defense. And once they do finally kind of load in, so just kind of double check on the movement. So everything looking pretty good. So kind of finalizing what we have for the rosters. So for the Tzeentch army, we do have Final Transmutation on the Herald, and that is going to be it in terms of spells. For the Herald, that is. Of course, the Cultists, on the other hand, probably going to be bringing at least a little bit of something for them. One Cultist does have the Hearthstone and the Gate of Tzeentch for a summon of pink horrors. Other one, same style there, so it's not going to be using the benefits from the Lore of Fire and the Wand of Whimsy. It is just going to be getting a little bit extra Winds of Magic and those summons in. As for Slaanesh, it is going to be Marauders of Slaanesh with Spears and those Hell Scourges as well. And then we're just going to have some regular Marauders of Slaanesh kind of on the lower fields. Plenty of units with shields kind of coming in. Those Spears, on the other hand, kind of bringing them for any spawn that might be coming in, but they don't have to be worrying about that too much just yet. For the Lord, we do have a Locust of Grace, the Portal Glyph, going to be getting a couple of summon of Chaos Furies, and then for the Lore of Slaanesh, we do have Acquiescence and the Slicing Shards, really kind of punishing Tzeentch for getting a little too blobbed up. Is kind of really expecting to be seeing those Forsaken and the Spawn that do kind of pretty decently well against the Slaanesh forces. And that is pretty much going to be it on that side. Of course, we do have a couple of the Cultists of Slaanesh going to be bringing in their own summons of Demonettes for that engagement. But Tzeentch going to be pushing very heavily into that top point 3, really looking to take that and then kind of have range control on the lower fields. But that, of course, is going to be allowing Slaanesh to kind of move in and just really kind of push into these points and kind of establish themselves a bit more, as Tzeentch is going to be struggling a bit with the mobility game, trying to push in and kind of really contest that point 1 and point 2. While point 3, though, is very heavily under Tzeentch's controls. Slaanesh, on the other hand, is actually going to be struggling a bit to kind of push into this little pocket that Tzeentch has kind of taken over, kind of really because Slaanesh generally does want to be getting in those flanking engagements, and especially with this point so high above the rest of the field and right up against the edge of the map, there's not going to be really able to kind of push in and kind of take advantage of that. We do have plenty of these Chaos Furies as well from Tzeentch, going to be starting to push in, utilizing their air superiority, as Slaanesh really doesn't have anything that can contest that. They've only really brought those Fury summons from that Herald, otherwise, or from the Herald, I think, or no, the Herald does have just the spells and as the Demonettes, so then the summon was from that Herald instead, getting more of those Fury summons in. but Slanesh definitely going to be trying at least to get that flanking maneuvers in, as they're going very far into the Tzeentch deployment zone with the Seekers of Slanesh, definitely kind of putting themselves a little bit at risk, but if they are able to kind of loop around and get into the rear of the Tzeentch forces, we'll be able to do some nice damage in with their flanking charge. But they're really just kind of sitting back and relaxing, just kind of staying out of range from all of the horrors that Tzeentch has brought. We do have now another one of the spawn kind of centered into this center ranks, as both of the Furies going to be kind of coming in to really kind of just contest that point one a little bit, with these blue horrors and these pink horrors just kind of starting to provide a little bit of pressure to those Slanesh forces. But Slanesh really kind of, I think, on the back foot here early on. They have very quickly taken that point 3, going to be getting some points very early on. Point 2 and point 1 looking to be won over by the Slanesh forces at this stage in the fight, and now Slanesh is going to start trying to push into the center ranks. The Hellstrider is going to be charging in, going to be getting a little caught up, not getting their charge, and taking a mighty bit of damage from that volley of the blue horrors, and they are going to be pulling back, kind of trying to pull these Forsaken a little bit out of position, while the Marauders of Slanesh are going to be charging in with these Hell Scourges on that center ranks, as they are going to be also trying to put some pressure on the downhill, as these Hellstriders are going to be charging in, but taking quite a bit of damage in, as both of these pink horrors are free to fire, and we are going to be seeing some of these Seeker Chariots now kind of diving in of these blue horrors. But they had taken a little bit of shots on the initial charge, but they're going to be hitting right into the center mass of these blue horrors, pink horrors, and just continuing to push right on through. Going to be taking down those shields, and we are going to be getting some summons in from the Cultists of Tzeentch, as we get 2 units of those pink horrors going to be dropping in, and it's definitely going to be adding quite a bit to the volume of fire. And on the far flank, the spawn of Tzeentch going to be sitting without their infantry support, though they have been able to break these Marauders of Slanesh. They have probably taken a bit more. Well, actually, the only damage they've taken has been to their shield, as we do get a summon of Demon that's going to be trying to deal with these blue horrors quickly on the flank, and getting some Chaos Furies as well from Menacing Platypus, kind of just trying to harass that ranged units, as the spawn going to be, again, just kind of continuing to push forward with these Forsaken on that flank, keeping Slanesh from that point 3, though they have been able to get just enough units to start taking that top point with the charge in from the Seekers. But we are going to be getting a very beautiful final transmutation, and that is going to be just the regular one, not going to be overcasted, but it is still going to be hitting 4 units in total. Marauders, these Slanesh, and those Seekers with that Cultist as well, doing a nice bit of damage there. And then I do also hear that shards coming down right into these pink horrors, doing a bit of damage there, but not doing quite as much, and those Seeker Chariots have been able to get compromised and are going to be dealt with. Definitely need to stay on top of them. They do have rather low armor, and though they have improved a bit over the pre-patch variant, they still are very micro intensive. Pink horrors are going to start suffering, but we do have these Doom Knights going to be coming in on that air superiority, as they're going to be able to get some nice engagements here on that top flank, really trying to deny Slanesh that center point, as Tzeentch has regained kind of command, but it is kind of flicking back and forth as Slanesh and Tzeentch vie for control of that top point, while Slanesh still does have points 1 and point 2. Not a whole lot has really been pushed to contest that, though we are seeing the Forsaken and the spawn of Slanesh going to be pushing forward with some blue horror support, and they should be able to deal with these Marauders and those Hell Scourges with no problem at all, as Slanesh just continues to just try and batter their way into point 3, as they have been able to kind of do some damage on the flank to those spawn, but they need to start getting that flanking engagements in, kind of just shut down the range that they can if they are going to be able to try and take point 3, as you can just kind of see that just kind of balancing back and forth between Tzeentch and Slanesh. Right now, Tzeentch does have the balance, and now, I mean, Slanesh does kind of swing back into their favor, as they do get some of their infantry in, as these Hell Scourges kind of start diving on in to that point 3, and they have been able to kind of push out Forsaken, and those Hellstriders are both going to be routing out of that point and down into the plains of the battlefield, We do have Tzeentch coming in with more force. 2 units of those spawn going to be trying to charge into that point 1, but we do have some Hellstriders, or the Hell Scourges, going to be trying to get some flanking maneuvers in, trying to get those rear charges and get that nice juicy charge bonus into the rear of them, and kind of just try and deal with what they can, because these spawn are going to be a rather difficult unit, especially with none of the spear units and anti-large at Slaanesh's disposal on these lower fields. And Tzeentch is going to be starting to take point 1 bit by bit, but point 3 is going to be falling to Slaanesh as they just continue to batter the forces of Tzeentch on the top field. Forsaken going to be routing from the field, and the spawn definitely very, very depleted, and the Doom Knights themselves are getting very low, and that's going to be putting the Herald of Tzeentch in a rather bit of a difficult spot, as those cavalry units going to be kind of collapsing, and as the Herald does try and pull out with those Doom Knights, going to be routing, but they are kind of able to at least buy him a little bit of time, and Slaanesh just continues to push in to the Tzeentch forces there, kind of really solidifying their location up on that high point. But Tzeentch has taken point 1, but that still means they are still going to be down a single point here, as Slaanesh continues to climb more and more in their advantage. And kind of looking at the total damage value, Tzeentch is in the lead in terms of that, but that is not going to be helping when it is going to be, they are rather slow at kind of pushing into these objectives. Just kind of, that's how Tzeentch is. It's a lot harder for them to do a quick, fast push on the like Slaanesh, who excels in that exact type of maneuver, and they have plenty of units here, plenty of superiority, even though all of these units are very beat down. We do have 1 unit of Forsaken trying to put a little bit of pressure here, but there's plenty of units of Slaanesh that are going to be able to kind of outmaneuver that 1 unit of Forsaken, as Tzeentch is just going to try to consolidate what they have on the ground. Actually going to be getting a summon down here of some pink horrors. I think that is probably thinking that might have been a little bit of misclick, but might just be trying to get a little bit of pressure here while Tzeentch does have that range, because there is a massive blob of Slaanesh forces on the ground here. So those pink horrors are going to be trying to get whatever shots they can into those units before they can close that distance. Seekers of Slaanesh going to be trying to put some pressure onto these Forsaken, who have been putting pressure on that point 2. So Slaanesh definitely has some presence down on the bottom fields, and kind of looking back up at the top, Slaanesh has lost quite a bit of what they had. I was mentioning before how kind of low they were, but they still had the numbers up on the top field. But now it does look like Tzeentch has a bit more advantage there. We do have some Furies going to be coming in, trying to put some pressure on the range units, hopefully trying to deal with the pink horrors and those blue horrors, and they should be able to do that. There's not a whole lot of HP left on those 2 units in general. Really, it is those Forsaken that are going to be a bit more of a hassle, and Tzeentch does have their own Chaos Furies going to be diving on in, and Tzeentch going to be looking a lot stronger here, as they do take 2 of the lower fields, and that last point is going to be quickly falling under their control as well. So they will be triple capping Slaanesh here. So Slaanesh, despite being have a very nice advantage in terms of total points, up almost 2,000 in total, they are going to be struggling a bit here at this point in the battle, as they don't have any points in their name, trying to take back the center point, and they might just be, and they do take that center point, able to get a few more points kind of going in their favor. But we are going to be getting a final transmutation on this center ranks. You're going to be hitting a ton of units, I think 5 in total. These Marauders with spears, regular Marauders, and then a few more of those Marauder units, all taking a nice bit of damage from that final transmutation, as they just really kind of break the backbone of the Slaanesh forces. But they really do need to take that center point, because Slaanesh is sitting very, very close to kind of really capping. They're going to be putting a bit of pressure on the far flank too, really stretching the presence that Tzeentch is able to kind of perform, as the Seekers of Slaanesh going to be putting some pressure on the Forsaken. One is going to kind of faking a charge into those blue horrors, and are now going to be getting a nice sandwich in on the far flank here against these Forsaken. 2 side charges, and they should be able to quickly decimate those Forsaken and start capping that blue horrors are going to be trying to respond and kind of pushing into that zone as they are going to be retaking that center point. But Slaanesh only about 500 points away from victory, and Slaanesh really, I mean, they don't have a whole lot left on the battlefield, and they don't really have a whole lot in reserves as well, while Tzeentch has 2k in total funds and plenty more units on the field, but plenty of damage has been dealt so far, and now Tzeentch fully focusing themselves on to this far point. And it looks like they have been able to get here just in the nick of time to really kind of just muck up the offensive that Slaanesh was trying to do with these two units, the Seekers and those Hell Scourges. But with both of the spawn kind of coming in, that might be just a little bit too much for those Slaanesh forces. And I think Tzeentch is going to be able to hold things out in this game. We're going to be looking to force a game 3 in this first semifinal. Nothing really coming in to point 3. Point 1 is pretty solidly under their control with a unit Forsaken and Blue Horrors. And I just don't think there's enough time for Slaanesh. If Slaanesh had been able to take point 2, that may have been a different story, been able to pull enough units kind of to force Tzeentch to control that objective. But as it stands, I think Tzeentch is going to be able to kind of pull things back. Slaanesh charging into that center point, using their mobility wherever they can. But there's just too many units, I think, for Tzeentch on the battlefield for Slaanesh to really deal with and kind of get into their points. They are kind of trying pushing forward some Hell Scourges, but they're not going to be able to get rid of those Forsaken anytime. And yeah, I think despite what Slaanesh is going to be able to try and throw into this point 1 is going to be a little too late, and Tzeentch is going to be taking command into a point, and Platypus, seeing that, is going to be able to concede, and it is going to now even things out 1-1. So let's take a look at the after battle report just a little bit here, as all sides, both the cultists, not really doing a whole lot of damage value, but getting some summons in, kind of what they were brought in for. Rest of the units, nothing to really write home about for the Slaanesh side. As for the reserve, the Seekers of Slaanesh, a couple of them getting some nice, decent damage, 1,300 and 1,100. Chariots, unfortunately, did not do all too well. Rest of the mobility, these Hellstriders did rather well, 1,400. Furies doing okay, but nothing else to really right home. But yeah, the Herald of Tzeentch, those final transmutations doing really, really well. 2,700 in total damage value for that Herald. Rest of the units, just kind of quickly going through those Blue Horrors doing what they do, getting 1,300 on a 400 costing unit, and then 1,600 on these Forsaken. So some nice damage being dealt by some of the Tzeentch forces. Otherwise, that is going to be pretty much all she wrote. So let's kind of switch over to our main screen, and we'll update the scorecard before getting into our last fight, as Outer Region evens things out 1-1 going into the rubber match. And we'll kind of see, so the next map is going to be, kind of take a look at the notes, is going to be the Battle for Itza. Oh, no, is going to be Death Pass. Battle for Itza is not until the finals. We'll kind of get into that if we kind of make it to game 4 of that series. But it's going to be Death Pass for the final game. Plenty of open fields on this side, so let's kind of take a look at Discord. So we got Platypus is going to be banning ogres, and he's going to be picking Tzeentch. And then for just kind of going into how this works, the top player on the bracket picks 2 factions, bottom bracket. Okay, so that's for the first 2 ones, and then finally the for game 3, the winner of round 2 will pick 3 factions and ban 1 faction. Their opponent will then ban 1 of those factions and then pick their own faction. So just kind of the traditional pick 3 format. So I think that is going to be, does actually look like that is what they're going to be doing. I'll kind of let them know. Yeah, that's kind of how it's been in the past, is that whole pick 3 for that final game, as both sides have used up. So we have on Platypus, we've seen we've seen Ogres and Slaanesh for their 2 factions, and for Outer Region it has the first one was Kislev, and then we finally saw Zinch for that second game. Yeah, some very good fights so far. So they did have it right. I was just reading the comments wrong. So Outer Region went Khorne, Ogres, and Nurgle for his pick 3 and banned Kislev. Platypus responded with picking Ogres, or banning Ogres and picking Zinch, and Outer Region is going to be going Khorne. So we have Khorne versus Zinch on this final game for the semifinals. So while the armies do get picked through, I'm going to get the dogs out real quick as they're kind of causing me a little bit of a pain. But while they wait, you can kind of just chill out, relax, and I will be right back for our third game. All right, I have returned. We have Outer Region ready, and we're still waiting on Platypus for our next fight. Andrew Kaufman, welcome to the stream. Yeah, there are some NA tournaments being kind of hosted recently. You can definitely thank Houseplant and Tim the Wilder for getting that organized. They are the leading force on that front. They've been kind of hosting some NA tournaments in the last few weeks now, I suppose. Trying to get something that isn't at like 10 a.m. for the American time zones. Something where they're not going to be at work while the tournament's being played. So Platypus and Outer Region both ready to go. So we'll kind of load into that. And yeah, on to, with the presence for the North American, there's definitely quite a few North American players in the tournament scene. We had quite a few players today even kind of sign up for this tournament. I myself was playing earlier on, but got defeated by Houseplant, who we'll be seeing in the next series. But yeah, there's definitely plenty of North American players. Definitely, I would say Total War generally leans more towards the European time zones. Generally, tournaments will be starting more suited towards them, but trying to catch North American ones as long as they don't have work responsibilities, though as many of them do, and that is why we're seeing the tournament at this time. So for this next fight, the last one for the first semifinal series, we do have Khorne for Outer Region, and we'll be having the forces of Zinch for platypus. So for Khorne, we are going to be seeing quite a few infantry units. We have some Chaos Warriors, some Halberds mixed in, and also we're going to be seeing some Flesh Hounds thrown into the mix. But definitely those Chaos Warriors of Khorne are going to be the staple in this matchup. They have those very nice armor and silver shields, which will do a very well against the Tzeentch army. And we are going to be seeing a unit of just the regular cultists of Khorne for the Lord instead of one of the normal lords. Both of these just going to be kind of coming in for their summons, going to be on foot, just dropping their summons, and that is going to be really all they are brought here to do. As for the Tzeentch side of things, as things are going to be getting rolling, we have some Forsaken, some Flamers, a few units of Flamers going to be kind of thrown in with some spawn as well. We're really trying to put some pressure on to the Khorne forces, and we do have the Herald of Tzeentch going to be pushing forward on their disc, and they are going to be coming in with the Locust Conjuration, Chromatic Tome, Blue Fire of Tzeentch, Infernal Gateway, kind of really these standard kit in terms of at least spells for dealing with Khorne. The Infernal Gateway is a very nice tool of dealing with elite infantry, and the Blue Fire is just a ridiculously efficient spell, even with kind of the Winds of Magic kind of being a little bit more balanced here for this patch. But Khorne definitely has plenty of avenues to kind of start putting some pressure onto Tzeentch, as Tzeentch is solely focused right now on point 2, while Khorne is going to be stretching their presence to points 1, 2, and 3. Going to be really kind of putting that pressure on Tzeentch in terms of total points, because Tzeentch really does kind of struggle at kind of getting to all of these points, especially on this map where they are very far apart in general. So that is going to be kind of one of these struggles here that Tzeentch is going to have to be really mindful of. They do have some mobility units, but they are really going to have to try and contest those outer flanks. Herald of Tzeentch is going to be kind of sitting right above the cultists, going to be getting some shots in, as Khorne really doesn't have anything that can really contest them. So just getting those shots in, I think the damage done on that shield is from the item that kind of has that 50% overcast chance at happening. But Tzeentch is going to be taking that center ranks, as Khorne kind of pulling back a little bit from that point 2, instead really kind of pushing heavily more into point 1, and just kind of sitting back and relaxing in that center flank, as we do see a few more units kind of starting to put a little bit of pressure as they slowly move their way towards point 3 on that side. Kind of taking a quick little look at chat while things kind of, I guess, get a little bit more organized. Well, that Cultist of Khorne, he's kind of taking quite a bit of fire from that Herald so far in this fight. Yeah, I think we'll definitely be seeing quite a few more tournaments hosted on the Total Tavern website, as this one has been. Kind of just more in terms of just overall scheduling. It's just a really nice to have everything all in one place for tournaments. Able to just kind of see when things are. I mean, just good for casters and for tournament players in general, so you're not just kind of hunting between all of the various like discords and websites just to kind of find what's happening on any given day. You just kind of find it all on a single central location, which is very nice to see. So as things kind of just get kind of settled in, Khorne is going to be looking to take these far 2 points, points 1 and 3, while point 2, the center point, still very heavily in Tzeentch's control, but they are going to be peeling some of their own units off. Some blue horrors spawn, and these flamers are going to be starting to relocate themselves and try and kind of put some pressure on a lot of the units that are on this flank. And there is a ton of these Fleshhounds. I think the Chaos Warhounds and Fleshhounds, 3 Fleshhounds, 1 Chaos Warhounds, so a ton of mobile forces are going to be sitting on that side. But really this cultist, I think at this point, just really needs to just kind of just charge forward if they can, drop that summon, because at this point they're not going to be lasting too long. That Herald of Tzeentch is going to be having their number, even with that silver shield, and I think that is exactly what that cultist is trying to do, trying to get to the edge of this map or edge of this cliff here to just drop that summon on the other side, deal with that Forsaken, and then try and just kind of just despawn out to avoid giving that leadership debuff for falling to that Herald. But not the end of the world, though. Even if Khorne does lose, it is a very cheap unit, only 800 in total with just that summon. In the center rank, as Khorne does try and push into the point 2, the Flamers get a nice volley off, doing some nice damage in, but the rest of the Chaos Warriors are just going to be kind of just pushing on forward. The Spawn are going to be kind of responding in kind, though, and they'll be able to do quite a number onto those Chaos Warriors, wanting to avoid those halberds, but all of the Fleshhounds and Warhounds are going to be charging on forward, and we're going to be seeing a nice drop for a spell, but it looks like Outer Region is going to be on top of things and is going to be able to pull out the bulk of his mobile forces. A few units are going to be kind of caught up, but the Fleshhounds, I think, I do believe, have some magic resist in general, or some spell resist, I should say. The Cultist of Khorne does finally kind of get routed off, and I think it did finally get its summon off, so definitely not a total waste for that Cultist, but came very close to doing exactly that. Now, the Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds do try and get out, but they are going to be caught out by that gateway as they take a nice bit of damage there, as the bulk of the units are going to be caught underneath that ever-piercing eye, doing a ton of damage there, as the Flamers as well, just doing a ton of damage and kind of cleaning things up. And now Tzeentch is going to be having some nice presence here on that far flank. Center ranks, we are going to be seeing just kind of a bulk of forces on all sides. We're going to be seeing the Chaos Furies from Tzeentch and Khorne colliding above the infantry units, as Forsaken and Chaos Warriors all clash together with those halberd units mixed in, but those Forsaken are going to be kind of getting a little bit pushed back here, as more units, though, are going to be getting fed into the meat grinder on that second point, while point 3 or point 1 is just going to be held by a single halberd unit, as Tzeentch focuses solely on the other 2 points in this engagement. Definitely would like to probably get a little bit more assistance here on that point 3, as we're going to be seeing some reinforcements coming in for Khorne. Some more Fleshhounds going to be charging in, providing their jaws to the battlefield, as Tzeentch, though, is still holding on to point 2, as pretty much everything is being thrown into the center point on both sides, as Khorne has Bloodletters, all of the Chaos Warriors, but on the back front, these Flamers of Tzeentch have been able to just kind of really just sit back and fire away, though I think they definitely need an attack engagement, though there's that volley going in right into those Chaos Warriors, and they are going to be able to break them and cause them to rout, freeing up both of these Forsaken to kind of turn their attention elsewhere, as more shots are going to be continuing to get in, and a very nice gateway going to be going down, catching these halberd units as well as these Bloodletters, doing a nice bit of damage to them, and it just kind of slowly munch their way through that HP bar, and the halberds are going to be breaking and kind of freeing up, and all of these Flamers are just doing a really nice job in terms of dealing with the Khorne infantry. Some very nice volleys. These Chaos Furies definitely need to dive on top of them, as the Fleshhounds as well, just trying to push forward through that gap in the formation, but it is a little too late for that. These Flamers have already used up most of their ammunition, though at least they're going to kind of delay them from at least not getting as much funds back in general, as the Tzeentch forces. Just look at that damage, 1,300 to 7,000. So Tzeentch definitely having the advantage there, but Khorne is actually trying to think of which side is which side. But yeah, Khorne is going to be kind of taking a little... Actually, that does not seem right. Sometimes that kind of flips the script a little bit on who has what side, but Tzeentch is going to be kind of pushing forward. They definitely have more units here on that second point, so they are going to be taking that back towards them. That is one little bug that is kind of on the field, is it doesn't always show the correct colors for those points. Tzeentch solidly in control of point 3, so really, again, just everything is really diving into this point 2, as Khorne and Tzeentch just kind of just try and dive in. A few units going to be getting desummoned from the field, trying to get as many funds back, and kind of take a look at what the funds are left. So both sides have used up most of their reserve funds. Platypus has a bit left with 1,000, but that damage differential is just so catastrophic at this point. It's 6,000 points difference between them, and despite the fact that the points is very even, that just means that Tzeentch has so much more to work with at this stage in the battle, especially with all of their range units. We have these pink horrors, blue horrors, all on the backside, kind of really firing in, kind of providing a nice little bit of breather. These Bloodletters are trying to kind of come in, but the focus fire from 3 of those horror units are going to be quickly melting that unit as they try and chase down these Flamers. Blue horrors are going to be now trying to commit to melee instead, allowing these Flamers to try and pull back. but a few things get a little mixed up, and Flamers are going to have to tank a bit of that with their shield as more and more units, though, just kind of collide in that center point. And Khorne, though, does have control of that point 2, so that means they do have point 2 and point 1 for the current stage of the fight, as they are going to be kind of pulling ahead in terms of points. But Tzeentch is just going to be continuing to kind of flood in with more and more units as they kind of throw more and more bodies in. We have some Forsaken, some more Blue Horrors, and I think those are some more Blue Horrors. Can be trying to maybe put a little bit of pressure here on that far flank, as Forsaken do collide with those halberds on that far flank and are going to be doing rather nicely. But those Fleshhounds will be trying to get a flanking attack in to break those Forsaken and keep that point in their control, as these Spawn, though, do continue kind of push forward, and there's no real anti-large here in this center pocket. All the halberds have really been dealt with, and that is going to allow those Spawn of Tzeentch to really kind of just charge in and deal with these Chaos Warriors without really having to worry too much about it. And as I mentioned before, these Flamers have done a really nice job of just kind of staying out of the way of all of the Khorne forces. Tzeentch has been able to keep them nice and safe, and they've been able to get some very, very nice value in. But Tzeentch can't be too cautious here. They definitely need to be taking some of these points, so they do have point 2 back again from the clutches of Khorne. And again, on the far flanks, nothing really changing on those side. Khorne has been able to retake that far side. Those Fleshhounds doing an excellent job of dealing with the Forsaken, but that is pulling a few of the forces away from that center point. And Khorne needs to really mount a rather good offensive, but they're going to be struggling mightily to make up that point differential, especially without really kind of getting any advantage from that comeback mechanic, as the points have been pretty even throughout this stage of the fight. And I think Tzeentch has a very strong field presence, and I don't really see Khorne kind of really doing much about that at this stage. Cultists of Tzeentch on the far flank going to be kind of coming in with some of these pink horrors, going to be trying to fire on into those Fleshhounds that are now tied up with those blue horrors on that side, and kind of swing in back into the center rank. Forsaken going to be teleported on out, get a little bit of funds back as the Spawn try and push back these Chaos Warriors, as those a very nice final volley, I think, from those Flamers. Like maybe one left. I think there's that last bit of ammunition being used by them, but that is a beautiful side volley, and they are going to be getting TP'd right on out, getting some more of that reserves back, and that is going to be used on a Forsaken, charging right on in to that center point, trying to take that back, as they are going to be slowly edging their way back in that total point value, as Khorne still has been able to do fairly well in terms of overall contesting that. On the far flank, Tzeentch still has it, but the Fleshhounds slowly trying to eat that point back. But it is going to be a rather close one in terms of total points, but there's plenty of units now pushing into point 1. Going to be so Khorne really going to be taking that far point, but losing the other as point 2. I just don't see Khorne being able to really push into the center point. Just the Spawn in general, I think, is just too much to really deal with. They're just too much of a roadblock, and all of the blue horrors. The Chaos Furies are going to be getting a little bit of a rear charge into them, but it's not really going to be enough, especially with Forsaken right on there. And yeah, with that value, only 500 points left for Tzeentch before they are able to get victory. And considering they still have, I think actually they have 2 points now. Point 3 is almost on, or point 1 is almost under control. So now that is a triple cap for Tzeentch. And is only now a matter of time. And that is going to be all she wrote, as Platypus does take game 3. As Khorne does struggle valiantly, but they do fall just a little short. So both of the cultists able to get their summons in, but the rest of the units, nothing able to really show for. The Chaos Warriors did get, one of them got 961. The Chaos Furies, or Chaos Warhounds, not doing all too great either on the mobile side. So yeah, just nothing really on Khorne's side did all too well. The only thing that really paid for itself was the spawn, while the Tzeentch just getting so much value. The Herald of Tzeentch getting almost 3,000 in total value. Forsaken doing pretty good work, but all of these blue horrors more than paying for themselves, and those flamers not necessarily as much value as I did kind of expect, only getting about 1,000 a piece, considering they were able to use up all of their ammunition and really kind of just get some nice volleys in. So I was expecting a bit more from them, but otherwise the Tzeentch really did trade remarkably well for that. So that is going to be, actually we'll switch over to the bracket, as that is going to be putting Platypus in to the finals. And now we do have Houseplant versus Trader GG for our second semifinal. Houseplant is in the lobby now, and we'll be just waiting on Trader GG for that. It'll be getting underway as soon as we can. Kind of take a look at chat. I know there's a few messages there in that last one. Yeah, but I'm definitely hoping that if Warhammer 3 gets the same treatment that Warhammer 2 had, we're going to be seeing a very long lifetime, I think, for Warhammer 3. And there's tons of stuff that's going to be added in that's already, I'm sure, in the pipeline. I mean, people have already found lines for the Chaos Dwarves, so that's pretty much a guarantee that we'll be seeing them at some point along the line for a brand new faction. Just taking a look at the rosters for the base factions for Warhammer 3, there's just so much left to add to them. I mean, if you look at Warhammer 2 factions, they have so many just DLC units in general. And I really hope that we do end up seeing that exact same thing in Warhammer 3 for all of the demons, Kislev, Cathay. I mean, I really do think there's going to be plenty of support going to be going the way of Warhammer 3. And once the Immortal Empires gets added in, I think that's just going to kind of really breathe a lot of that life back, because it's just going to add like insanely amounts of content and just all the new matchups, especially for the multiplayer scene, not even to mention on the campaign side. So let's take a look though into Discord for our next picks. So we have Houseplant picking first. He is going to be going with Khorne and Nurgle for his pick 2. So now we're just waiting on Trader GG to pick his. Let's get the map switched back over. I believe it was Arnheim first. Crossing the Sea of Claws. So again, is going to have a bit more on that range side. I think, let's see, because with Khorne and Nurgle for the first 2 picks on crossing Sea of Claws. Trader GG just asking which map it is for the first one. Okay, yeah, Crossing Sea of Claws, Arnheim, Death Pass for the semis, and then we'll get into the finals in due time. But going back to the matchups here for what we're looking at, Khorne and Nurgle being the first 2. Trader GG is going to be going with Kislev for his pick. I'm definitely thinking Khorne is generally been a very strong pick against Kislev, especially in Domination. Things changing a little bit with the differentiating of funds for the starting armies, but I do think we're going to be seeing Khorne here from Houseplant to follow things up. Nurgle really does struggle against just the ranged that Kislev can bring. Coffee break. Immortal Empires, following up with Mortal Empires from Warhammer 2. It's just, the map is going to be, just insane for like just campaign, just all of the factions getting added in, not to mention the incoming DLC factions that we kind of expect to be seeing, like Chaos Dwarves, and I mean, there's trying to think of what would be the next one. There's other factions on like the far east side of the map that could be some fun ones. Of course, if you ask me, I'll always want to be seeing Nagash, but we'll see about that one. That's might be seeing a little bit slimmer and slimmer chances on that side. But it does look like Houseplant is going to be going Khorne. He hasn't quite explicitly said that, but it is the faction he has selected against Trader GG's Kislev. And I think that is going to be the right pick here. And I should update the contestants as well. So we'll do that while we wait on Army Select. So we have Houseplant on the left side, and we'll have Trader GG on the other. Update the scores back to 0. There we are. So Houseplant is ready to go, so he is going Khorne. Just kind of forgot to mention that to Trader GG. I think he kind of assumed that with the factions being picked. So Khorne, Kislev, Khorne definitely going to be wanting to bring a lot of the Chaos Warriors, kind of like how you play it against Tzeentch, where they just have that 100 armor, silver shields. That's exactly what you want to be bringing against Kislev. Kislev kind of losing a bit with their light war sleds. They're not as affordable as they were before. They're still quite strong, but they cost quite a bit more than they did from the last patch, though I'm kind of expecting to be seeing a build fairly similar to what we've been seeing in the past as Kislev. So light war sleds, might even see some heavy war sleds mixed in, kind of the bear squad as well. Just kind of to counteract the shields that Khorne will undoubtedly be bringing. Of course, bringing in halberds and spawn, definitely a bit of a risk if you're going with as Khorne, considering how much range Kislev has. We'll see how things do fare. Just waiting on Trader to kind of finish up his Army Select. I'll kind of take a little peek while we have the intermission scene up and running. So as looks like he is still thinking quite a bit. So, and also thank you, Sip, for graphic. I've had that for a while. I just haven't had the chance to really use it for a while. So we're just kind of waiting on the Army Select. So yeah, Trader GG, it looks like he's doesn't quite have a good idea just yet on what to be bringing against Khorne. I know Houseplant definitely has probably a build or 3 per matchup already ready to go. And I'm just going to sit back, relax, and wait for both sides to kind of iron things out for their final armies. But yeah, I guess we can kind of, as we wait, go to kind of discuss, I guess, the patch a little bit, considering how fresh that is. I think overall, in terms of just the units that's been updated, the mechanics, responsiveness, I think is really one of the biggest changes. That's, I think, a major benefit, and the interaction with like cavalry and chariots, I think, is also kind of the big gameplay mechanics that really help with this patch. We're kind of yet to see how the changes to domination in general are going to kind of affect that side of the multiplayer scene, where just the initial starting funds and just the more supplies that we are going to be seeing. So we're definitely going to be seeing larger armies, and we've definitely been seeing that so far today. A lot of the battles have been just tons of units on the field, a lot more so than kind of before, because before the patch we were definitely seeing armies that were very small to start things off, lots of more single entity squads, and now it's kind of more shifting, I would say, more back towards kind of what you would seeing more towards the tail end of Warhammer 2, where it's just lots and lots of units just trying to fill the field and pressure as many points as you can. Before it was very difficult to pressure more than 2 at once. Now it is very doable to pressure all 3 at the same time, Trader GG is ready, so we'll kind of load on in. In terms of this particular map, though, for Kislev versus Khorne, Kislev does have some range units that they can be able to benefit from the geography on this map, kind of how ogres do benefit. Might be seeing some little Grom. Looks like we are seeing a couple of the heavy war sleds, and I do hear the dog as well whining a bit in the background, even though she was just out. We'll be able to switch the scene over so you can see what I'm talking about too for the armies. Uh-oh, that's not good. Okay, good. For a second, I thought we had just crashed on Warhammer 3. It did say that. And we actually did crash a little bit of desync. And I just noticed that the scorecard was off. But we will be getting back into it. Apparently everyone's still in the lobby. Oh, there is desync. Okay. I knew it was coming eventually. So that little tidbit hasn't exactly been fixed just yet. So we'll get back into that. Rehost. I think that might just be good practice in general to do from here on out. I know this was a problem from earlier on where if you hosted lobbies from one series to the next with new players coming in, for whatever reason, it was an issue. Hopefully the players saved their factions, but we will see. So we should be getting right on into this next one. Make sure the map is correctly set this time round. No armies being seen. And we should be getting right on into game one here in due time. Houseplant's ready. I think Trader GG might not have been quite... I don't think he had his army just saved. I'll switch over to see where he's at with that. Yeah, so unfortunately he did not have his army saved. But it shouldn't be too hard to get things reset on that front. So just a little hiccup, and we'll be getting right back in to our second semifinal game. And while we wait, we can kind of take a look at the bracket as it stands so far. Outer Region did fall to Platypus earlier on in the first semifinal, and Houseplant and Trader GG are now waiting on their first game before their series really kind of gets underway, and that is Khorne versus Kislev for those first two factions. It does look like Trader GG is almost set for his army, looking very similar to what we were seeing before things did go bottoms up. So we should be just about ready to start things off. There we are. And fingers crossed that we got a stable lobby this time around. So we'll switch the scene over as we're loading on in. Let's kind of see what we had before. We have a Tsarina Katerin, 2 Patriarchs, Little Grom, 2 heavy war sleds on Kislev's side. As for Khorne, we're going to be seeing the Herald, 2 Cultists, 2 Spawn, Halberds, and 3 of the Chaos Warriors going to be taking the initial field for Houseplant's Khorne. And we're just about to load on in as we can kind of get a closer look at all of the items and abilities that both sides do have for their lords and heroes. Cultists pretty much expecting to be seeing cultists on horseback with their summons only. Really excellent use at just kind of dropping them on Streltsy. Having that mobility is really good at kind of making sure those summons go exactly where they need to go. Herald of Khorne, on the other hand, is going to be coming in with the Locus of Wrath, which is a plus 40 melee attack in an AoE, which is exceptionally nice. Hellblade and Revel in Slaughter as well for some more lovely benefits. I mean, Revel of Slaughter has another AoE. Hellblade probably just what was left in terms of funds, and there are the rest of the Chaos Warriors, all of those units, and things are getting underway. So let's quickly go over what Tsarina and those Patriarchs do have. So we have Frostfang, we have Ice Sheet, Heart of Winter, very good spell there against the rather slow units of Khorne, able to catch them out. Crystal Cloak as well. For the Patriarchs, one of them does have Silex, Lullaby, and Tor's Battle Hymn, and the other one is going to be bringing the exact same thing by the looks of things, and I don't see any other of the item. I do see the Dazbrazer and Balaika of the Arari on one of them, so a little bit more heavy on the other. I generally will be bringing a bit or one of those items on each of the Patriarchs, just so you can kind of have a bit of a fail-safe in case one of them does kind of fall earlier on. Little Grom is going to be kind of firing away early on, while all of the chariots, so those heavy war sleds, going to be charging into point 1, with the Bear Crew going to be all condensing on that one solid point. You're going to be getting some Flesh Hounds on this far side, as the spawn of Khorne going to be taking cover behind the cliffside here, as the war sleds do kind of go right into this channel. But that is going to be really allowing the Khorne forces to get up close and personal against the ranged of those heavy war sleds, but those heavy war sleds all are going to be streaming towards those center ranks, as the halberds are going to be facing up directly against them. Now, I would not advise these chariots to be charging straight into those halberd units. Definitely go for these Chaos Warriors of Khorne if they can avoid those halberds. And is exactly where they are going to be charging on into, as they do kind of push in, kind of just slowly charging into the flank of those Chaos Warriors, as the halberds are going to be responding with all of those spawn, going to be trying to really counteract them. But if we take a look over here, these heavy war sleds taking a ton of damage so far, kind of missed that little catch earlier on, but already down below half health. And considering these are the heavy war sleds with 110 armor, that is a massive amount of damage. Here we are going to be getting a summon down as well, trying to catch them in, but at least the chariots are able to kind of push out. But these bloodletters are going to be charging right into the Tsar Guard, and that is exactly where they want to be engaging with. These crucified dervishes do get a charge in kind of as that summon does appear on the field. But one of those heavy war sleds do take a ton of damage early on and kind of swing on back, as Khorne is able to kind of push in some units. We have some halberds and those regular Chaos Warriors on point 1. Some more units on the far point there. Chaos Warriors again taking point 3, while the center rank is going to be the focus for the Kislevite forces in this battle, as those Patriarchs already getting taken down. One does fall to that Herald, and both of those cultists doing a nice bit of damage there. So which one was that ended up falling? So that was actually the one that had all of the items, as you can kind of see with the other Patriarch here. So that is exactly why I kind of divide those items between the two Patriarchs in case one does fall. So now they are going to be a little shy of a few of those melee buffs, as the Herald and those forces are going to be just charging against Tsarina Katerin and the last remaining Patriarch. So things looking very strong for Khorne early on. Definitely damage value showing that on the top left corner of the screen. And things looking rather strong in terms of points as well, as Khorne is able to really dominantly control all 3 points, finally taking that far point there, as mobility forces for the Korsovite dervishes are going to start to kind of put a little bit of pressure in, as the heavy war sleds get some shots into the rear. They still have 3 of their models left, so nothing in terms of total output and damage is going to be lost. And Little Grom does get a little bit too far ahead of itself, I would say. It is going to be trying to pull back up ahead. We have some Streltsy as well, going to be getting some shots in from up on high, as the Herald and both of the cultists do kind of pull on out back into the safety, and probably chasing down these heavy war sleds, which really don't have any good avenues to really run away to. They don't have exactly that great of speed. They only have, I mean, take a look at them, only 66 speed, and these Heralds of Khorne are, and the cultists are going to be able to kind of catch them out, getting a few whacks in as these sleds do try and pull out, but it looks like they are actually probably going to be losing some models here, as one does fall. The other 2 most likely are going to be going down as well, as there isn't really a whole lot left in them as they do end up routing. Tsarina is getting very low, and Khorne looking very, very strong here in this first battle here, as they have all all 3 points and are doing exceptionally well in total damage, more than making up for whatever Kislev is going to be getting in terms of the comeback mechanic for the supply line. And now all 3 of those mobile forces are going to be going right on top of the last unit of heavy war sleds and are going to be quickly taking care of them without any problems whatsoever, as that little Grom continuing to get some shots off, but it is running out of space to really be able to do it. We do have a Heart of Winter going down, hitting some of these remaining Khorne forces, trying to free up some space for Tsarina. But Tsarina herself is on slivers of HP, as is that Patriarch, and it is only a matter of time before they get because they really need to kind of fall back and use that Patriarch's ability to kind of get some AoE heals before they spawn in. But the spawn going to be charging in, getting some nice damage dealt into that Patriarch, and if they are able to kind of get even a couple of hits on Tsarina, she is most likely going to be going down from them. Little Grom still kind of posting up. I haven't really seen any shots raining out anytime soon. Streltsy getting some nice shots down the hill, as the Sarguard are going to be kind of holding that line. But down does fall, and that is going to be it. Traders, you're kind of seeing a little too much going against them, as Khorne does emerge victorious in that first fight. So let's update that score real quick. So it is 1-0 for Houseplant, and we'll go over the results real quick as well for the units. So both the Cultist and the Herald doing very, very well. That mobility that they had was able to outspeed those heavy war sleds, catch them, and do some very nice damage to them, even though those war sleds did have 110 armor. And that was really kind of where a lot of that damage was coming from, was those 3 units able to really just deal with the mobility, all those bears. The Fleshhounds did really well on top of that, able to catch out those heavy war sleds on the initial stage of the fight. So kind of quickly looking at the damage value, these guys still were able to get 1147 on those heavy war sleds, 850 on the other side. So despite getting compromised pretty effectively by Khorne, they were still able to get some decent value in. Streltsy got some good shots in, but yeah, they just kind of lost all of the heavy hitters, and it just didn't have enough pressure on all of the points. And that is going to be it for game 1, as we're going to be getting into game 2, and that one is going to be on the Arnheim. So this is that new map, and let's see what we have for picks. So Trader is going to be going Ogre Kingdoms and Tzeentch for his 2 picks here, and we'll be kind of getting into those. And the dogs were pestering me just a second ago, so we're going to go check up on them, and we will leave you here for just a second. Well, the final army selection is going to be underway. Let's kind of just check to see. So Houseplant's going to be going Nurgle against Ogre Kingdoms and Tzeentch, and because he's been playing Nurgle quite a few times today, I've noticed in some of his earlier series. I'll see what Trader GG does decide for his faction, and then I'll go check on the dogs real quick. Yeah, Houseplant, yeah, he is definitely amongst the strongest of the Domination players on the multiplayer scene right now. He is very, very strong. I lost to him earlier today in the tournament, in the series before the semifinals, and he's been playing nothing but them. So yeah, our match together, we played... Oh boy, it was a Khorne Mirror, actually. Yeah, we played Khorne Mirror. We brought pretty similar armies. His just had a few extra, he brought his Herald versus I brought Skarbrand, and it just traded a little bit better into me. And that's just kind of how that went, but it was a fairly even-ish match. Definitely he traded a bit better. Trader GG is going to be going Tzeentch into Nurgle, which is usually Tzeentch favored. So with that, now you know the matchups. Houseplant's on Nurgle, Trader GG's on Tzeentch. I'm going to go check the dogs real quick. I will be right back. All right, so dogs were just making noise. Didn't actually need to go out at all. But yeah, still waiting on army select here for our next game. Should be some interesting fun. See what Houseplant has for Nurgle. Nurgle definitely got some more cost-effective units with the patch, with Plague Bearers being cheaper now, and just like their flying units, a bit more ammunition on their side as well. So it definitely should be rather interesting to see if that's enough to give Nurgle that little boost, because they still are going to struggle in terms of just mobility. Now these objectives on this map, they are a little closer together, so if Nurgle is able to take kind of that top point and kind of control the center point and the highlands, they might have a bit of more advantage against Tzeentch, conceding that far off point. But that does kind of mean they do need to really control 2 points throughout the course of the fight. So we are just waiting on Trader GG now to finish up his army. Houseplant is ready to go with his. So it should be some good fun on that. And now, of course, the dogs make more noise after I had checked on them. Alright, since Trader's still waiting, we will take another quick peek in the other room, and I'll be right back once again. All right. Yep, I am aware, Willie. My dogs were demanding my attention, and that has been figured out. So we are good and going into our next match. Sorry for the short, extended delay. So taking a kind of look at what we're going to be seeing, we do see a Herald of Nurgle. Probably the right choice here. The Great Unclean One probably take a little too much focus fire from the forces of Tzeentch. You're going to be seeing a couple of the cultists as well on the field for some more summons, as those cultists are so excellent at doing. Once we're loaded in, we'll kind of break down the rest of the armies, and Nurgle is going to be bringing quite a bit more on the Forsaken side, as we're going to be seeing a lot more units of those. And actually, I guess Herald of Nurgle, probably a good idea bringing them on foot, considering how strong Tzeentch can be in the air. So he's bringing the Locus of Fecundity, so a nice little bit of healing and vigor added up to that, and that is an AoE. We do have the Stream of Corruption as well. So a nice little breath attack against the generally low armored units, and with the Forsaken losing their magic resist, that is going to be all the much better. So we also have Fleshy Abundance, so a nice a bit more of additional regen, and on top of that Locus of Fecundity, we have the Cloud Flies on them. That's pretty much going to be it. As for the Cultists, going to be probably just bringing in that Gate of Nurgle for those Plague Bearers, and kind of swinging over to Tzeentch real quick as they do kind of push forward. So we do have, I forget there is actually that is a Kairos Fate Weaver. So is going to be coming in, forgot where that was for a sec. He does have the Oracle of Eternity, so getting some nice extra damage resistance, Gaze of Fate for -40 melee attack, and that Net Void Pendulum kind of be reducing the Winds of Magic, Scroll of Destiny, as well as the Staff of Tomorrow, Pendulum, Blue Fire of Tzeentch for the spells, so quite a few items, but only a couple of the spells. We do have Life Leeching, Fates of Change, and Greater Arcane Conduit, so he's a fairly expensive lord here in this fight. Frontline is going to be plenty of Forsaken across the field, and then some Blue Horrors as well to kind of wrap things up. And we're going to be getting a couple more Blue Horrors on that initial summons. As for the forces of Nurgle, we do have those Exalted Plague Bears coming in as well, and more Forsaken going to be kind of taken in as they do bring to the field. So those Plague Bears going to be doing quite a bit of damage, but we're going to be getting some shots raining in against that Herald. A couple Blue Fires very early on, taking that Herald down very far as some Toads do kind of come in from those reserves, as that Herald is going to be trying to support his Forsaken here up on that point 3. But Nurgle definitely going a bit more wider in this build, kind of playing on the advantage of the reduced cost of the Plague Bearers, and just kind of allowing them to just kind of go a little bit against the grind for what Nurgle generally will be doing. But they are going to be very mindful, because the lore of Nurgle is just so very strong for their army, and losing that caster is going to be a bit of a problem. And Kairos Fate Weaver is going to be trying his darndest to make sure that that Herald does go down, as he is already down to half health, as we're going to be seeing that army ability trying to, again, just snipe out that Herald as quickly as possible for Tzeentch here, as he's just going to be trying to bring him down to see if the shot is able. He is healing up very quickly with that Fleshy Abundance. Going to be just getting that spell back, or all that HP back, bringing it about 25% health back from that cast, and there is still plenty of healing left in its back pocket. But the center ranks is going to be engaging on the field, as Forsaken are going to be clashing across the field, as well as those Plague Bears. So it is all pretty much center ranks, and we do have those Exalted Plague Bears against Forsaken. They should have no problems dealing with them, especially with the assistance of these Plague Toads. So, but the assistance of all the Blue Horrors definitely need to be seen on the field, as the Forsaken for the Tzeentch forces are quickly being compromised on the downhill slopes, and that is going to be allowing these one unit Forsaken on the top hill to really capitalize on that point, as some Chaos Fury is going to be trying to come in, and a nice cast of that Blue Fire going to be chunking away at that Herald's HP bit by bit, as it continues to try and heal itself. Also, Locus of Fecundity does go down, and is going to be healing himself right on up, as now Kairos Fate Weaver is going to be coming into melee, trying to do what he can. Now, he isn't as good at melee as the other Lords of Change, but he is no slouch, especially when compared to that Herald of Nurgle. And Nurgle is kind of losing a bit in terms of its support. I mean, it still has plenty of Forsaken and the Plague Toads, but yeah, that Herald of Tzeentch taken quite a bit more damage, and is just trying to out heal through all of that, and very nice use of that spell. It's just going to be roasting through those Blue Horrors, as the Plague Toad's just going to be getting right into that back line. Forsaken have been able to deal with the Nurgle's Forsaken here, as they continue to just kind of put some nice pressure on there. As you can see, Nurgle, though, is really kind of putting good pressure on every single point. So they have points 1 and points 3 at this point. Point 2 on the far side, side is going to be looking to probably go towards Tzeentch's side. They are able to kind of just stop that cap right before the end of that, but it still looks like, actually, no, that is, see, now that is one of those bugs where you kind of see the color just the wrong way, but Tzeentch is able to take cap 2, but that is really kind of what Nurgle is really wants. They don't have the mobility to really contest all 3, so if they're able to definitively hold points 3 and point 1 here at this point, that is where they're going to excel and really kind of just buckle down and hold those points. And it is going to be up to Tzeentch to really kind of break into that formation and just kind of just try and whittle down all of the HP that Nurgle does have. The summon of Plague Bears is going to be going away here, as the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch going to be trying to kind of charge forward and kind of really use their shock ability to kind of push in. And welcome Adelmo to the stream. Yes, it is a rare sight indeed seeing a live stream here. But yeah, the Chaos Knight's going to be charging in, trying again to break through the Nurgle formation, as only the Nurglings are really holding things back here. They are quickly going down, but they have a ton of HP to really get through, 8,400 in total. So with Tzeentch, that is going to be a little hard task for them, as they are going to be pushing into point 2, and it's just going to be trying to pull as many units of Tzeentch as possible to deal with a very cheap unit of Nurgle, and more units are going to start coming on to the field, as Nurgle is going to be able to kind of start putting some focus more onto this pocket of Tzeentch that is really kind of sitting more towards point 2, and just kind of forcing Tzeentch to really overlap and kind of come in. Now we do have some pink horrors up on this far side, shouldn't have any problems dealing with those Nurglings, but it isn't necessarily going to be a quick task for them to deal with them, and that is going to give Nurgle time to kind of reinforce that with as quickly as Nurgle is able to do. But a very nice land on that snipe against that Herald, getting that sundered armor. Of course, against Nurgle, not really all that much, but it is able to deal so much damage. He is already at his healing cap, you can see. So really now any damage now from Kairos is going to be sticking against that Herald, but that Herald has done an excellent job of just kind of wasting as many winds of magic as possible, still while able to kind of get some nice damage dealt in. So the blue horror is quickly kind of dissipating, as Nurgle though is actually slowly capping point 2, as but Tzeentch is going to be putting pressure onto point 1, bringing in a couple of blue horrors and a pink horror there to kind of put pressure in. But the mobility with the Black Toads are going to be starting to rotate their way back towards that center point, as things are just trying to muck up these pink horrors here and just kind of keep things at bay as much as they can, as they're able to kind of take point 2 now. And that point is going to be going more and more into Nurgle's favor as the battle does rage on, as more Nurglings and the like are going to be starting to stream into point 1, pretty much just trying to slow down the cap as much as they can. These Nurglings aren't going to be able to really beat these blue horrors and these pink horrors, as pink horrors doing some nice bit of damage though against these Forsaken and these Plague Toads, as they do pepper them in as they charge on forward. Plague Toad is going to be disrupting that range as much as possible, and actually are able to kind of reverse that cap point, coming back into their favor as we switch back up to point 3. These Furies diving down against these pink horrors have actually been able to kind of keep them at bay, and it looks like we have 2 units of those Furies just really, and Nurglings just holding back those pink horrors, and that is allowing those Nurglings again to just kind of keep things at bay. More Chaos Furies kind of coming up towards that field, just delaying Tzeentch, and that is really playing against Tzeentch's really kind of limiting factor, is their ability to push quickly and heavily into any points. And Nurgle has just been able to really do very well in that regard, keeping them at bay, slowing them down wherever and whenever they can, and have been doing very well in terms of damage as well, able to out-damage Tzeentch, and that is really something, especially considering normally it is the opposite, where Nurgle is just kind of really just healing everything up to its heal cap, and you're seeing the damage value kind of reversed on that front. Both those cultists kind of trying to tag team against Kairos, so Kairos is able to do very well in melee. Not a whole lot that Nurgle has on the field is really going to be able to damage Kairos all too much, so he's able to kind of get some good or just kind of really sustain, because he himself isn't exactly a damage dealer in terms of melee. Blue Horrors able to kind of pepper in against all of this infantry, Forsaken and Plague Toads, all just really kind of getting damage in. But at this point, Tzeentch just, they don't have the field presence. Just kind of looking back, they're bringing in quite a few reserve units here. They don't have a whole lot left. They only have 400 left, in terms of supplies, and they are suffering greatly in terms of what they're able to present. That just blob of just toads and Forsaken there are just holding everything at bay, and yeah, Trader GG is seeing the writing on the wall and is going to be conceding. Houseplant is going to take the series 2-0, and that is going to get us towards the final here. So let's take a look at the after battle report here real quick, and then we'll be getting right on into our final series, best of 5 series. And so for the after battle report, Tzeentch, Kairos Fateweaver getting some nice damage value, but unfortunately, since he was unable to kill that Herald of Nurgle, all of that damage value really was wasted for the most part, because if he was able to kill that Herald, that would have been maybe a different story, because the Herald only got 443, but all of that damage, yeah, from that from Kairos just did not have any effect really on the battlefield, other than some winds of magic being forced to be used towards healing, instead of maybe using it on to try and damage some of the low armored units that Tzeentch does bring. But otherwise, that is pretty much it for that. Take a look at the reserves. Cultists, the Chaos Knights, not doing all too great for their cost, but Nurgle, yeah, is able to get a victory against Tzeentch here in the semi-finals, and that is now going to open the door to the finals. And hopefully, with only one person leaving the lobby, we won't be seeing any desync, though that might very well be exactly the thing. Hey, Mercy the Mad, right? So hey, Outer Region, welcome as well. Well played earlier on. So yeah, let's take a look at the bracket here. So Houseplant moving forward. So it is going to be an RTK final. Let's take a look at where everyone is and see if we can't get Platypus into the final battle. It's going to be a best of 5 for the final one. And for the best of 5, it is going to be the same system as the best of 3 with alternating picks. So it is going to be pick 2 and then pick on the second player and a final, and then pick from the 2 factions in your pool. What we have seen so far for game 5, we are going to be using the pick 3 system described as well, but the winner of game 4 will do the initial pick. So same exact pick and ban from a best of 3, though with how limiting the factions are, that is going to be a rather interesting gambit if you are able to kind of force your opponent to pick or to use that ban. So that is going to be an interesting little bit. Now we are going to need to track down Platypus. I definitely see him in a voice chat, so let's get Platypus in. And then we can get the final underway. And we'll update the contestants as well for our best of 5. Still waiting on our rogue first semi-finalist to get in here. Hopefully he's not sleeping at the wheel or anything like that. It is getting rather late even for North American standards. It's getting 10 o'clock here. There we go. We have our final 2 contestants in the lobby. So let's get the map set up too. So for the best of 5, we are going to be seeing Broken Leg Gully for the first one. And then for the subsequent maps, it is going to be Crossing of the Sea of Claws. Arnheim, Battle up for Itza, and Death Pass is going to be the lineup for the best of 5 maps. And now we are going to be getting into our picks and bans. So Houseplant has his first 2 picks. Actually, I think it might be reversed. Let me see. No, Platypus has the first 2 picks. He is top of the bracket. And then we'll be getting into our first match as quickly as we can, as it is late for all parties involved. All right. So as Platypus is thinking, hopefully he doesn't have to think too long about this, but yeah, we'll be seeing if Houseplant's going to be winning more of his own tournaments, or Platypus is going to be able to usurp that throne. So we're going to be seeing Nurgle or Ogres for Platypus in the first game. And this is a best of 5. So both players definitely don't want to be using the strongest factions right off the get-go. Definitely would be limiting them quite a bit. So we're definitely probably going to be seeing a bit more Nurgle. Cathay is still going to be up for debate. But we have not yet seen them today. At least on stream. There may have been a series or 2 that may have been bold enough to go into the Cathay realms. But yeah, we have not seen them yet today on stream. Houseplant definitely has his pick. So Nurgle or Ogre, so he's going to be going Tzeentch for his first game, which is going to be a little interesting considering of how strong Tzeentch generally is. Using them right off the gate, definitely Houseplant's going to be wanting to win this. Don't want to be wasting that pick so early on, especially against potentially Nurgle, though he did just win as Nurgle against Tzeentch. We'll see if Platypus wants to be stealing his own builds. We have yet to see the rebuttal from Platypus on his side of things. Ogres definitely have options, but Platypus is instead going to be electing to go with Nurgle. Going to be saving Ogres for another matchup. So we'll see how Nurgle against Tzeentch is going to be faring this time around. Houseplant's going to be seeing it on the reverse side as Tzeentch instead of Nurgle. See if he has plans to counteract the very stuff that he was able to win with in our last series. Yeah, historically doesn't exactly go all that far back. But yeah, Tzeentch definitely usually has the advantage against Nurgle. They more than make up for like the air superiority, so they can easily win that side of things if they do want to go that route. While yes, on the ground forces, it is a lot harder for Tzeentch to quickly deal with the Nurgle army, and with the reduction to the costs, Nurgle can bring more, and bringing more as Nurgle means you're adding like another 10,000 HP for Tzeentch to really deal with. And Tzeentch, while they definitely don't have a lot that can quickly press in, they definitely will do well against low armored factions, which is exactly what Nurgle has. But we shall see what tricks and surprises Houseplant and Platypus, which I just realize. Nope, that just looked wrong to me, the spelling on there. But Platypus is ready to go. He has his army selected, and as does Houseplant. So we'll get into our first game of the best of 5 series between Platypus and Houseplant. So taking a look at the armies kind of going into things. So for Houseplant and Tzeentch, he does have a Lord of Change, 2 Flamers, 4 Forsaken, and 3 Blue Horrors. Looking over, we do have a Herald, a couple of Cultists, some lovely Forsaken, 5 units of those, and some Plague Toads for the infantry. So we'll take a look once we are loaded in at kind of more on what the Heralds and that Lord of Change did down in bringing, but that is kind of the rundown on what we'll be seeing for the army. So definitely Nurgle going for more of that same style that Houseplant did bring in our last series, in that last final game. So for the Lord of Change on Houseplant's side, we do have the Portal Glyph getting some summons of Chaos Furies. We have the Blue Fire. We have the Infernal Gateway, which while it has a ton of armor piercing, it also just does really well against kind of just high valued infantry. So we'll be able to kind of chunk through them. It's been Forsaken to have some decent armor, so that will help quite a bit against them. But that is pretty much it in terms of items and abilities on him. Now, as for the Herald of Nurgle, we do have the Locus Fecundity, Stream of Corruption, Fleshy Abundance, and we do have the Cloud of Flies as well, though he is going to be on his own Rotfly, unlike the last match where he was on foot, so it was going to have to be a little bit more cautious about the Air Force that Tzeentch can be bringing. And then we do have those Cultists, which in terms of what they're bringing, actually do have a few other items. We have the Icon of Eternal Virulence, as well as the Warrior's Bane, and some Cloud of Flies on one, so it is looking, and then the other one is more bare bones without those and just that Gate of Nurgle. So one does have a few extra items, probably a bit to deal with available funds in that starting army, but they are going to be pushing heavily up into point 3, which is actually going to be more favored towards Tzeentch's side, is more on their side of the map, while point 1 is more on Nurgle's side. They are going to be sending some Plague Bearers up that route, as Tzeentch is going to be pushing more heavily into point 2, and the rest of them are going to be kind of going up towards that point 3 to contest the overwhelming numbers of Nurgle going to be coming in on that front. Everything else can be kind of chilling out in the forest, going to be trying to just avoid all the incoming fire, as that Lord of Change is going to be trying to get some hits in onto that Herald of Nurgle, who does kind of dive down into the tree line to kind of be surrounded by his own units, because definitely does not want to be stuck in with that Exalted Lord of Change, a much better stat line than comparing to Kairos himself. So he's just going to be able to do a little bit better. I believe his stat line, the Exalted Lord of Change, is better than Kairos in that regard. Flamer's going to be getting up and close and personal, though they definitely don't have quite the numbers to really can keep them safe. These Plague Toads going to be diving on in, as these Flamers going to be getting one decent volley in, but they're going to have to be quickly pulling right on Black Forsaken, are going to be kind of pushing those Plague Toads back and giving those Flamers a bit of extra space, as that glare from the snow is going to kind of be keeping the camera a little bit at bay, trying to see what's going on in the field here, as we can kind of get a little feel a little bit as we kind of get the highlights on. We're getting some more shots in from these Flamers, going to be getting a nice volley into the Forsaken, but they are rather exposed here, well ahead of the rest of the Forsaken and Blue Horrors, and they don't really have a whole lot of room to run, as that gap is quickly narrowing down, and Forsaken can be getting a nice little Flamer sandwich up in there, as they do kind of at least catch them out a little bit. The Gateway does go down, can be trying to catch in. It looks like it catches some Forsaken, doing some nice bit of damage to them, able to outright shatter them, as there is a pile of dead Forsaken now in the center of the battlefield, as these Plague Toads can be kind of wreaking havoc amongst the back line, but those Spawn of Tzeentch should be able to deal with them fairly well and kind of deal with that, as the Exalted Lord of Change dueling that Herald up in the sky, and we're going to be getting some of those Plague Bearer summons on the field from Nurgle. I do not see where those units did end up going. If you just see the gate kind of coming through, these plague bears I think might be that unit. And we kind of zoom out a little bit to kind of see how the rest of the battle is going, as the plague bears and these toads can be kind of pushing forward, kind of keeping these Forsaken at bay. But that is going to be leaving point 1 uncaptured just yet, as Tzeentch does have that center point, as these flamers continue to kind of try and avoid these incoming Chaos Furies, though they have been able to manage to mitigate most of that incoming damage, even though these Forsaken did have a rather nice little catch. And I think we're going to be seeing another gateway right on top of this 2 units of Forsaken, and that is going to pretty much deal with these outright and might just shatter those 2 units right off the field. So 2 very nice casts so far from that gateway on the Tzeentch side, dealing with the Nurgle Forsaken, and the Herald of Tzeentch just kind of getting in the way. Actually has done some considerable, I think, yeah, has done some pretty decent damage so far. I can't tell if that's the HP bar. So yeah, that's just the damage done is only the shield, not the actual HP bar. And more spells can be dropping down. So for the Nurgle forces have taken quite a bit of damage. I mean, Houseman, you can just see that damage value is almost 2 to 1 at this point. He's done a remarkable job with the spell casting. He's able to really pepper that low armored Nurgle forces, as Platypus's Nurgle forces just continue to get roasted down. Have been able to deal with some of the units, but again, these flamers just continue to just like avoid all of these Nurgle forces, just somehow happening to be on different sides of the Nurgle line, depending on when we look at this side of the battlefield. But they again are going to be kind of pulling on back, as these blue horrors going to be kind of getting in the way of those cultists, as that Exalted Lord of Change does dive down once again onto that Herald of Nurgle, trying to just do whatever damage. But really, that Herald of Nurgle, despite being seemingly a squishy lord, just soaks up the attention of other lords and abilities, and we get a nice little breath attack here. Going to completely eliminate the shield on these blue horrors, and it's going to be allowing these plague bearers then to kind of get some nice damage in on that side. And Nurgling's going to continue to kind of push back a bit of the Tzeentch forces, as they're just going to get a little bit of breathing room for the rest of the forces, keep those horrors and those flamers at bay. And it does look like that Nurgle has finally taken point 1 and are well on their way to taking point 2, as they were looking to get taken a couple points here in the later stages. But Tzeentch having a very strong presence here around point 3, and are now going to be able to kind of start descending down the hill upon the rest of the Nurgle forces, kind of slowly kind of catching them between a rock and a hard place with the, some of their range units. And that Exalted Lord of Change continuing to chase after that Herald with every chance that it gets, and another gateway going down. This time going to be on top of some plague bearers. For the most part, the plague bearers are able to kind of get out of the range of that spell, but a lot of them do kind of get stuck inside that vortex and are going to be getting chunked down a little bit. And that Herald is getting very dangerously low, as it is going to be trying to escape the just the pursuit of this Exalted Lord of Change, as some of those Chaos Furies are going to be kind of diving in. I think that is actually, yeah, those are some Tzeentch Chaos Furies, again, just kind of keeping that Herald down, and it is now going to finally be getting unstable, so it is going to be slowly breaking down. It does get a heal off, so Fleshy Abundance and the Locus of Fecundity was both going down, but it is not going to be able to help it when it is slowly crumbling away. Exalted Lord of Change finally able to deal with that Herald, and is going to be allowing just a lot of breathing room in terms of just not having to worry so much about like just all of these units. He's healing up more and more, as Tzeentch is just going to continuing peppering away. Yes, I definitely agree that the Inferno Gateway is very cool and a very effective spell at that, at dealing with expensive infantry. It does quite a bit of damage and keeps things locked in place very well. And yeah, Nurgle, though, continuing to kind of throw their weight against that center point, still have it under their control, and are actually kind of taking point 3 as well, still have point 1, some Forsaken coming in to deter these blue horrors, and this one cultist unit is going to force a response from Tzeentch, even though Tzeentch has a ridiculous discrepancy in terms of total damage. They are going to just have to be respond to all these units. They are going to need at least 2 points here at some point in this stage of the fight, as Nurgle is like, even though like this is kind of where you traditionally will see Nurgle, is they'll be losing in that damage dealt, but they will just have been healing up so very much. Now in this battle, I don't think it's quite to that degree where they've been able to heal up 6,000 points of total HP. So Tzeentch is just kind of just going to be slowly pushing in to what Nurgle has, and like the Plague Bearers are now kind of just going to be centered on multiple fronts. Nice volley in from those Flamers of Tzeentch, going to be able to just try and finish off those Plague Bearers, and everything else just really kind of focusing here. And this would be a nice target for that gateway if there's any more winds of magic left. I know we've already seen like 3 of those spells coming down from that Exalted Lord of Change, and we can take a quick look at the damage value. So already he has 4,300, almost 4,300 in total damage done by that Exalted Lord of Change. So more than paying for itself with the spells and pursuing that Herald of Nurgle throughout the course of the fight up until this point. And at this point, we're seeing a lot more of the units starting to focus in on point 2. Tzeentch definitely needs to try and force Nurgle back. Now with Nurgle, that is much easier said than done, and it does look like they are able to take that second point, but how long are they going to be able to hold? Because Nurgle is throwing in quite a few units into the center objective. These Flamers are going to be able to get withdrawn, having used up pretty much all of his ammunition, and the Plague Bearers are slowly disintegrating bit by bit, as well as those Nurglings Forsaken as well, getting kind of beaten down. And more of those Nurgle forces just really taking a pounding in that center ranks. Point 1 is kind of up for the taking. Honestly, these Forsaken could have potentially put a little bit of pressure, but are going to be retreating back in terms of grabbing a little bit of extra funds. Forsaken again can begin trying to move on down now as they have, but it is going to be all she wrote, as Platypus is actually going to be conceding. Yeah, just the damage value was pretty lopsided at that stage of the fight. It was really, heavily. I was like almost at 7,000 points at that point, and the final tally for that Exalted Lord of Change was 4,400. Both of the Flamers, well, one of the Flamers did really well, other one not so much. The Forsaken doing some pretty okay work, and then all of the Blue Horrors very cost effective for what you get out of them. And then the rest of the units just kind of taking a quick gander at what they got. Forsaken very effective here. Blue Horrors again mostly going to be paying for themselves. As for the forces of Nurgle, quickly break down their cost. Forsaken definitely not performing as well as their Tzeentch counterparts, and the Plague Bearers again just not really able to deal the damage that they really kind of needed to, as just the healing, especially once the Herald was gone, just didn't have the staying power that Nurgle really needs to rely on. But that is our first fight for this best of 5. So we'll switch back to the intermission, update the score as Houseplant does take the lead 1-0. And we'll get into our next one. So our next map is going to be Crossing of the Sea of Claws. We'll switch over to that and take a peek at the Discord to see what we have for picks. So we have Khorne and Nurgle from Houseplant. Platypus is going to be responding with Ogres, and Platypus is going with Ogres, and Houseplant is going to be going Nurgle. So we've seen Nurgle from Houseplant quite a few times already today, and so he's going to be going with them again. So we'll see how he's able to do against Ogres. And again, this is another matchup where Ogres have been really good against Nurgle up until this patch. And we'll see if that is going to continue to hold true. Just because Ogres, just their range is just able to pepper down all of the high value targets. But I played against Houseplant semi-recently in this matchup, and I believe it was pretty much Forsaken and Spawn is what he brought against me in dealing with the Ogres, and it did actually really well in that regard. And with some of the tools being kind of not as effective, like with the Iron Blaster, the Gorgers, for example, is going to be probably a pretty effective for Nurgle, or at least it's going to be pushing that favor a little bit back more in towards center. I wouldn't necessarily, I probably wouldn't say that it's Nurgle favored, even with the balance changes that we've seen in the last couple days. So it looks like both sides are ready. So crossing the Sea of Clouds, we are good to go into our game 2 for this best of 5. And yeah, let's get right on into our next one. Both sides pretty much knew what they were going to be bringing from the get-go. So let's switch into that main 3. So both sides bring in quite a few units. As I was kind of saying before, lots of spawn, not Forsaken, but we're going to be seeing those Plague Bearers with a reduction in cost. It is, yeah, bringing 5 of those, 3 of the spawn. It is then going to be electing actually 2 cultists, not even going to be bringing any spell casting, at least initially. Most likely going to be bringing some in reserve, but still that is going to be a little bit of a loss early on in the fight, not having any spell casting, no healing for like the spawn or the Plague Bearers or anything like that. So we'll see how well that's going to pay off for Houseplant here against Platypus's army. So once things are loaded in, we'll kind of go over things a little bit more in detail. So Cultist, just going to be bringing the Gate of Nurgle, as is the other one. So that's pretty much it. And then, as we said, 5 Plague Bears, 3 of the spawn. That's pretty much all she wrote on the Nurgle side of things. As for the Ogres, they're bringing quite a bit more variety here, as we have a Slaughter Master of the Great Maw, bringing extra ingredients, as well as Bone Crusher to help kind of deal with the infantry. And so we'll do pretty well against Plague Bears, probably most better against Forsaken, but still do probably some pretty decent damage there. Also does have the Blood Cleaver, as well as Belly Slapper for the rest of the items. Now for the, also has the Iron Blaster, a bunch of the Noblars in the front ranks, some Ogre Bulls with dual weapons who do have that bonus versus infantry, some Man-Eaters with Ogre Pistols, which do pretty decent work against a lot of the Nurgle forces, and against like the Spawn, for example, their shots will do quite a bit of damage, but that is pretty much it as things are going to be advancing. So just quickly kind of just taking a look at the chat here real quick. But yeah, both sides can be kind of pushing up. The Iron Blaster is going to be getting a nice line of sight early on, though definitely probably doesn't want to be pushing too much farther forward. Going to be getting a nice opening volley in and getting some decent damage against those spawn off that initial volley, and going to be just kind of continuing just to wait up, gets more shots, but is actually going to be kind of moving a little bit on to the flank, and especially with the changes, the flanking shots with the Iron Blaster is definitely going to be where that benefit is going to be seen mostly. Both of the cultists, though, charging is just straight forward into the Maw, as they are probably looking to try and get some of their summons off, and that is exactly what we're going to be seeing. The first summon of Plague Bearer is going to be coming in right on top of all of these Ogre Bulls. Plenty of Noblars, though, in the immediate vicinity to kind of help with that, just kind of keeping some chaff in the middle of that engagement. And the Iron Blaster definitely needs to be kind of pulling back just a little bit farther, get some little bit of breathing room. And it looks like we have some Lead Belchers as well up on high. And this map really does help with the Ogres in general, as they're just going to be able to kind of just pepper into that center formation, as the Ogres do kind of start putting some pressure onto the far flanks. But with the Spawn and those Plague Bears on that side, I don't think those Ogre Bulls and those Noblars are going to be up to the task to really deal with that. But the center formation is just a massive blob of Ogres, of Plague Bearers, and the Ogres are going to be adding some lead into the mix of things, as those Man-Eaters with Ogre Pistols going to be getting some decent shots into the middle of things. But the Ogres are going to start losing out on a bit of their infantry, as those Ogre Bulls quickly going to be routing with their generally low leadership, and these the other Ogre Bulls with the dual weapons going to be starting to kind of get in on to the flanks, and they're going to be kind of one of the better options to deal with all of these Plague Bears and dealing with all of that infantry. But with those Spawn mixed in, they are going to be able to, or the Nurgle forces are going to be able to kind of kick back a little bit better, but they really would like to push into just this massive amount of range that is currently sitting up on the hill. Just like these 2 Man-Eater pistols and those Lead Belchers, that Iron Blaster, all that stuff is doing a ton of damage to the Nurgle force. I mean, just looking at the damage done so far, Nurgle is only done less than 1,000, while the ogres are already sitting at almost 3,000. So we'll see how things are going to be kind of faring out, because Nurgle can only take so much, especially when they don't have any healing whatsoever in the fight. But we are able to see that Herald of Nurgle is going to be coming onto the field and does have the fleshy abundance, but that is going to be all that he is going to be bringing, and a beautiful use of that Iron Fist right into the middle of 2 units of Plague Bearers, taking off half health on one and a nice good chunk, about 25% on the other. So a nice bit of value there. As you just see, that damage discrepancy is just, the ogres are just trading so very, very effectively at this stage. Now Nurgle looks like they are going to, actually I think that might be the ogres. We'll see who caps that point. We can never tell exactly, and there it is. So Nurgle does take that point there. Colors can be deceiving in this game, as Nurgle is also looking to try and cap here the far point and point 3 as well. So that's really going to be Nurgle's best bet at this point. They need to just take these points and try and outlast the ogres, and rely on the ogres using their ranged superiority, and just try and absorb as much of that damage as they can, because they are not going to be able to really out damage the ogres, especially at this point. The cultists can be kind of pushing forward. Probably would have been better to kind of try and desummon that cultist, try and get it back a little bit earlier, but it is going to be a loss nonetheless versus them, as now the Herald of Nurgle finally kind of getting in and might be able to start assisting that front ranks as it does kind of waddle its way towards that center engagement. But the Iron Blaster is in a very nice position, exactly kind of where it wants to be, point blank range with its shotgun, but instead is going to be kind of trying pulling back just a little bit farther, though the juicy target there with those Plague Bearers that can generate a ton of value with just a single volley right on down the line. It looks like it is instead going to maybe trying to elect to fire down against these Plague Bearers on this side to assist with those Gorgers that are kind of trying to sneak in and take that far point from the Nurgle forces, as Nurgle has monopoly currently on the current capture points. Yes, definitely a meat grinder at this point, where Nurgle is just throwing everything they can, but the ogres have traded exceptionally well at this point, 9,000 to 4,000 in terms of damage dealt. But that is just pretty much where the ogres stand in terms of their range. They're just able to do very well. Kind of take a look at point 1. We haven't really zoomed over on this side very much, as the spawn are just trying to kind of deal with things with the Plague Bearers, but the ogre bulls, and we're getting more and more shots, especially with these lead belchers now just peppering in against the spawn, doing some nice bit of damage there, and should help kind of breaking them. We have a full health unit of Forsaken to also support, and then on the far flank on point 3, Gorgers do kind of dive in against these Plague Bearers. The Cultist of Nurgle is also there to support. Center rank is mostly just been a grinder up until this point, and the Iron Blaster seems to be having a little bit of trouble trying to get a shot lined up, having only used up a little bit of its ammunition at this point. And the center ranks of the ogres have kind of lost a lot of their infantry, so ogre bulls are all really kind of depleted. The Noblars themselves not really kind of doing a whole lot. And Forsaken, all these are just really kind of pushing or just not necessarily pushing them back, but holding all of the ogres back, and just absorbing all of the damage from their ranged units, as they just kind of weather the storm. And up until this point, they've been doing an excellent job of doing just that. But at a certain point, you have to imagine that advantage that the ogres are getting from just the supply line, so they're getting plus 10 now at this point for their supplies, and with how they're out damaging Nurgle pretty much 2-1 at this point. At a certain point, you have to imagine that the ogres are going to reach that critical mass and are just going to be pretty much an unstoppable force, especially if they're going to be taking a few of their units out, getting a few more funds back, almost at 2,000, so they're going to be seeing probably a nice influx of units as those reinforcements do come in. But it looks like those are actually Nurgle forces, as Nurglings and those Forsaken going to be charging in, again, just trying to hold that point 1. And ogres, they're running out of time, despite the fact that they're just decimating the Nurgle forces in terms of damage. It's not going to matter a whole lot if they lose out on all 3 points, because they are down over 3,000 points, and by the time they cap probably even 2 of these, they're going to be down by 4,000. So they're going to need to triple cap as soon as possible. And at this point, you're just not seeing that pressure put on all flanks. Nurgle very solidly in control of point 3. Only these actually, yes, yeah, I was looking at that wrong. All these 1 unit of Gorgers is the only thing that's kind of contesting point 3. But yeah, the Ogres just don't have the pressure being pressed against the Nurgle forces at this time. And looks like they're taking point 1, starting to take point 2, but point 3 is kind of a far cry away from being taken. So Nurgle, if they're able to kind of focus everything they have at just delaying the Ogres as more shots kind of rain in against these forces from those Noblar trappers. But yeah, Nurgle, despite the damage, is definitely not out of this fight just yet, as they continue to just hold back the forces. Like, they still have point 1 in their control. I think, yeah, at this point, I don't think that the Ogres have the time required to take enough of these points back. So yeah, this is a rather interesting development here. The Ogre Platypus just kind of sat back just a little bit too long to before kind of trying to put that pressure down. Point 2 is still in their control, but they are losing point 1 now, and a lot of forces starting to come towards point 3, but they only have 400 points to go while they still have control of 2 points. Yeah, I just think even if Nurgle just completely retreated at this point, the Ogres just aren't going to be able to take these points fast enough. And that is going to be all she wrote. Houseplant able to take it against overwhelming damage dealt against him. So we'll kind of take a look at all of that damage dealt. So even the Slaughtermaster able to get over 2k in value. Iron Blaster, really, I felt like it was just like struggling to find shots. It was trying to get shots down the line. It just wasn't able to do it in that fight. Both of the man-eaters with pistols did very, very well. Rest of the units in the initial army, nothing too special there, but we do have the Lead Belchers getting 1,700, and then the rest of the units, and I think the Noblar Trappers as well, are going to be getting some very decent value amongst them. Nothing too ridiculous, though. As for the Nurgle forces, both of the cultists kind of coming in early on, and then nothing. I mean, it was just pretty much a holding game for Nurgle. They just outlasted the Ogres. Like, they just kept them from taking, even though they were taking ridiculous amounts of damage. Eventually, once they got that Herald of Nurgle in, they were able to get the healing that they needed. And yeah, that was pretty much all she wrote. So that is going to be game 2, as Houseplant does take the lead 2-0 now. Take a look at some of the chat from during the game. I saw some messages kind of coming through, and we'll switch back to our intermission scene and see what we have in store for game 3. So yeah, it is on Arnheim for this map. So I'll switch that over for our contestants, so they are able to get a feel for the map, though they both played on this one. So Platypus going Tzeentch and Slaanesh. Platypus will be right back, so that's going to give us a little bit of time anyway to kind of go through kind of what you guys were kind of discussing a bit in the last fight. So kind of going back a little bit of ways. So we're talking about Lead Belchers earlier on. Lead Belchers are actually very good if you can protect them. So Lead Belchers are very squishy units against like even Chaos Furies. Lead Belchers go down fairly fast, but they can deal some very good damage. And if you're able to protect them and keep units away, they do exceptionally good work. As you see on that last match, they got 1,700, I believe, in total damage. It's really kind of some of the more mobile factions where you maybe see them a bit less. Like, I wouldn't bring them against Slaanesh, but against like Nurgle, they're very good against them. So again, on the Slaanesh chariots, yeah, as Adelmo did mention, I wouldn't necessarily say they're broken, as in they're too good. They, like, before they were very bad, but they like they just didn't perform well before the patch, and now they're doing pretty decently. They still require quite a bit of micro, but they definitely are performing probably where you would think they should. If you leave them in combat, they're going to die, but if you can cycle charge them in and out of engagements, they do very, very well now with the most recent patch on that front. Yeah, Roundhouse Farm. I don't disagree with that at all, probably, because it's definitely. I would say, like, once Immortal Empires gets implemented in, is when it will. Yeah, again, though, that's going to be, like, again, for mostly for Warhammer vets, because it'll be adding in all the factions from game 1 and 2. But a lot of the factions right now are fairly one-dimensional in terms of what they can bring, and even among like the demon factions, there's not a whole lot of difference between the lineups. But yeah, it's like I definitely don't see like it. I mean, a year from now, the game's going to be entirely different from what it is, and I definitely hope to be seeing quite a bit more growth throughout all of that. So back to the matchup. So I think we're still waiting on Platypus, but it is going. But so as a recap, Platypus went Tzeentch and Slaanesh for his pick 2. Houseplant went with Kislev, and Platypus responded with Tzeentch. So it is going to be Kislev versus Tzeentch. It looks like both sides are ready, so we'll load on into our next one. Before I would see Kislev bring the light war sleds. So it's going to be probably Khorne. For some reason, I was thinking Kislev. Okay, so I need to familiarize myself. Yeah, okay. That was my mistake there. So it's Khorne versus Tzeentch. A lot different matchup there. Khorne definitely probably fairly strong against Tzeentch. So we'll be seeing, again, a lordless army from Houseplant here. So for the Khorne forces, as they get moved around to and fro, so we're seeing Chaos Warriors of Khorne across the field, very common against Tzeentch. Both 2 cultists of Khorne as well, going to be on horseback by the looks of things, and they are going to be bringing that Gate of Khorne to get that Bloodletter summons. We do have some Chaos Warriors with dual weapons as well to help deal with any Forsaken. I saw some Chaos Furies as well, and Tzeentch is going to be fully focusing on this top point to start things off, as we do have 2 Forsaken on that first flank, Blue Horrors, mixing a couple of Flamers, and more Blue Horrors spread out in front of a couple of spawn. And then, of course, for the Lord, we do have the Herald of Tzeentch, as I just took away that unit card, as has the Locus of Conjuration, the Chromatic Tome, Blue Fire, and Infernal Gateway, and that is pretty much standard kit. So yeah, the Infernal Gateway and Blue Fire both do very well against any of the armored units of Khorne. So if you fire that Blue Fire right down the line of a Chaos Warrior, it will do an exceptional amount of damage, and that gate is going to do a lot of damage to anything that gets grouped up. So Roundhouse Farm, that is one thing I think with Domination that's kind of gotten a little bit better, where yes, the game is very micro intensive, but with Domination you get a bit more of that macro feel to it. I think that's kind of where Domination can be. We'll kind of see how things do shake up, but land battles in general, yeah, that's a lot what you're going to see is that heavy micro play is going to be what dominates the game play. So on to the match. So Tzeentch is going to be kind of pushing forward into point 3. And there's not really a whole lot to contest it. Everything that Khorne does have up on this top hill is going to be hiding away amongst the trees, trying to kind of mitigate any incoming range fire and just kind of waiting for a bit more reinforcements to have that mass kind of push into that top point, while Khorne has more than enough units on the bottom field to really just kind of just take up as much of these bottom points as they can, and is going to force Tzeentch to really kind of move their forces out of that point 3. And once they do, that's kind of when all of these forces up here in those tree lines is going to kind of start moving in to point 3 and just kind of force the Tzeentch to kind of counteract on 2 fronts at that point. We do have some spawn coming in, and they are going to be using that tree line, of course, to kind of just keep their way or keep out of the range of the blue horrors in particular, who will do quite a number on them. And that Herald of Tzeentch, I think, is going to be trying to kind of push forward maybe a little bit to get a little bit of spotting done into the tree line, kind of see what is all going to be hiding amongst the forests. As, yeah, on all these units on Khorne, though, are just kind of really sitting down on the lower field, and there's actually quite a bit of funds all focused down here. We are going to be seeing a few of the units of the Forsaken start to kind of push down a little bit with these blue horrors, and they definitely are going to need to do that. They will easily take point 3, but 1 point is not going to win Tzeentch this game. And I think Houseplant has actually a really good deployment here, has a good idea on how to really take apart Tzeentch as soon as Tzeentch is forced to engage. They have, Houseplant has enough forces down on the far fields to force a sizable enough of the Tzeentch forces to commit to them to even have a chance at pushing them off of point 1, and that is going to allow all of these other units to then kind of sweep in on to that top point and really put that pressure on and hopefully deal damage there. But Platypus is going to just kind of hope for just the massive units that they have consolidated up here to hold this top point for quite some time. Flamers are going to be getting into some position, and that is one thing, though, is the Flamers have really nothing to contest them at this time what's on the field. The Cultist is going to be wanting to kind of get in, try and get those Bloodletters. We have no Furies, no Flesh Hounds on the field to really kind of put that pressure on those Flamers, so those should be able to get some very nice damage done to those Chaos Warriors as those Forsaken kind of push forward. And Forsaken probably want to push forward up against that Cultist just to get some distance between them and those Flamers on that front. More spawn going to be coming in with those blue horrors, and are going to be kind of, again, adding to that mass on the upper hill. Because Tzeentch at this point, having committed so much to that top point, really can't come in on this bottom flank to try and put pressure there, because everything that they do send that way is going to get picked off by these Flesh Hounds, by those Chaos Warriors, and we are going to get in that Bloodletter summon, though, right in on top of all of these Forsaken. The spawn going to be charging in down the hill, 2 units of those, as those Flamers of Tzeentch going to be kind of pulling back just a little bit, getting that breathing room, and should be able to start aiming their attention back down the line on to those Chaos Warriors, who are holding the line very effectively up until this point. Those Chaos Warriors with halberds going to be coming in to help deal with those spawn on that front. But so far, battle is far from decided, yet the forces of Tzeentch able to so far have the advantage in terms of damage done, and that is going to be a little bit more meaningful in this battle versus the Nurgle fight that we saw a bit earlier. But Tzeentch so far very heavily holding that point as the Fleshhounds try to find a little gap in that formation, and now Khorne is putting everything they can to deal with these Flamers. Fleshhounds, Furies, all that stuff is diving down, and it seems like they are going to be able to deal with this 1 unit of Flamers. There's not really a whole lot here to kind of keep them at bay as the blue fire just kind of arc its way up towards that top plateau, but the Flamers just continuing to get melted down by all these units. And even if these Furies and those Fleshhounds do get taken out, I think it's going to be well worth the cost, but they might die just fast enough to hold those flamers still in that fight, so Tzeentch was able to respond quickly enough to kind of keep things at bay. Looks like those flamers still taking a bit of damage done, as those Fleshhounds still not quite defeated just yet. Cultist of Khorne also going to be diving in, so the flamers not quite out of the woods just yet. A nice little bombardment here under that center ranks, able to kind of really pluck away at most of those Chaos Warriors, and now all of these blue hordes going to be just focusing down these Chaos Warriors, as well as a very nice gateway. Going to be diving right on top of those Chaos Warriors, and is going to be clipping these Bloodletters as well, doing a nice bit of damage there, just kind of alleviating some of the pressure from the Tzeentch forces on this top flank, as they continue to do a nice bit of damage to the Khorne forces thus far in the battle, as things going, I wouldn't say necessarily bad one way or the other, but I would say Khorne still has a good position right now, having control of 1 and 2 in a pretty strong fashion now. They have not a whole lot that they need to commit to take to really hold these points, and Tzeentch is really on the pedestal where they have to make the aggressive move to push down into point 2, and even point 3 though really isn't even fully in their control. They have those dual weapons are still holding that point, and we have more units coming in. We have Bloodletters as well as 2 more units of Chaos Furies, both going to be kind of coming in to help support this center engagement, and are going to, again, just continue to kind of put pressure in. But really, these Furies, only one of them really needs to deal with these Flamers. Nothing is back there on that far front to really keep those Flamers safe from those Chaos Furies. And in the center formation, those Halberds are doing very excellent work against those 2 units of Spawn, able to really kind of chunk them down and keep them surrounded. But we're going to be getting a nice gateway right in. It's going to be hitting those Chaos Warriors and those dual weapons, doing a bunch of damage there. A very nice cast on that, and that is going to be some very nice damage. Going to be definitely assisting Tzeentch, who is kind of struggling a little bit in that damage department, as some Furies are going to be brought in from Tzeentch to kind of put some pressure in. But those Fleshhounds going to be going right underneath them, as those Chaos Furies, realizing that that unit has kind of gotten under the radar, is going to try and nip at their heels, get them to try and turn around, because these Flamers are right in their path as they're going to be diving in, getting a nice charge in, going to be taking down that shield and doing a nice bit of damage, as these Furies try whatever they can, but it is going to be probably too little too late. Those Flamers going down very, very quickly, and another bombardment going to be hitting all of these Bloodletters and these Chaos Warriors as they kind of go up against it. But that is going to be it for now, as Platypus does concede once again, as Khorne, they just were not going to be getting pushed back from that center point. Tzeentch, I think, probably would have been much better trying to hold the lower 2 points, because Tzeentch, when you get really condensed as they were getting, it struggles a lot more at getting the room to maneuver, getting everything to be able to fire in. But let's go over the after battle report real quick here, before we do kind of close things out, because that is going to be our final game, as Houseplant does win the series here 3-0. So nothing really too nothing that stands out all too much on either side. We never even saw that Herald of Khorne being brought in, but both of the Halberds did actually exceptional work, and the Fleshhound, one of the Fleshhounds, did really well. Otherwise, for the Tzeentch forces, nothing too great. Those Flamers really just weren't able to stay protected. We'll switch over to the bracket, as Houseplant does take the series. So he is going to be the victor for today, having won his own tournament. Not the first time that he's done that, and it probably won't be the last. He has done exceptionally well in domination tournaments throughout the release of Warhammer 3, so it's going to be rather fun seeing just how many he's able to kind of bag in his pocket moving forward. But yeah, that is going to be all that we've got for in terms of action today. I'll take a quick look at the chat, see if there's anything I missed. Otherwise, I think we're going to be closing things out here, going on forward. I know it is late for probably all parties involved, except for those who are on the European side, where it's now actually early and people are starting to wake up. in terms of just about ready for going to sleep. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, thank you guys all for joining the stream tonight. It was good fun coming back. A little twist of the arm got me back streaming again for at least today. So we'll get into some more of that. It'll be fun with that. Yeah, we'll Rise of the Mortarchs with Immortal Empires. We will definitely be trying to get that kicked off. Yeah, I know I've definitely been on a bit of a hiatus. I am going to blame Elden Ring on that one. Why we've been absent for so long. But yeah, definitely, that's definitely going to be trying to get some more tournaments rolled in. Get my own tournaments back up and running, see if it's going to be domination, land battles, or a mix of the two. Might be an interesting format, trying to do some series where we'll see a bit of both in its own in a best of three, so kind of alternate some games. That's a thought I've been thinking about. But yeah, thoughts for another day. And again, though, thank you guys all for joining the stream today at such a late or early hour, depending on where you're at. Yeah, without further ado, we'll close things off. And as always,